Hello, hello. Damn it. Okay. Sorry, one moment. Okay, hello. Come on. There we go. How is everyone? See, yeah, hey. Okay. We'll get this started in just a moment. This is Disregarding Henry with another live video drone stream. Ooh, catching up on the new Twin Peaks. Hope you're liking it. Yeah, it's uh-oh. Video up low. Alright. Gonna have to do that. Okay. Still getting a red bar on the stream. How do I fix that? I guess we're just gonna have to keep going. Hopefully the stream holds. Alright, so yeah, talking about some movies this week again. It's great, Nightmare Fuel. Yeah, it seems the new Twin Peaks. New Twin Peaks is amazing. It seems like it's one of those love it or hate it things. You're either gonna get really into the new thing it's trying to do, or you're just gonna be totally disoriented and confused. But I guess people sort of reacted that way to the original Twin Peaks a bit too. It's just the original Twin Peaks was a bit less extreme. From one of my many trolling accounts. Okay. Why not? So yeah, this week we're finally going to talk about Swiss Army Man. I was supposed to talk about that last week. And yeah, finally got around to watching it this week. And yeah, no new Twin Peaks yet. The new episodes or episode, whatever they're doing, it drops tomorrow. So my brother and I and our friend Brett, we're going to watch that tomorrow. Probably talk about it next Saturday. And yeah, I was wondering what other movies I could talk about this week, because I didn't really get a chance to watch a lot of stuff. But I did see a movie, I don't think it was this week, it might have been last week or the week before. I did see a pretty good horror movie called Willow Creek that I kept meaning to talk about, but I kept forgetting about, so I thought, talk about it this week, feature it on this week's episode. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Just picked up The Secret History of Twin Peaks. Are you going to pick it up? It's real interesting so far. Sounds like something I'd like to read. I don't know a lot about Twin Peaks, like how it was put together, how it was made. I know a little bit about it. I've read stuff here and there, but yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know a lot about the book, though. I don't know if it's like about the lore of the show or if it's about the production of the show. But yeah, I'd like to read a book about Twin Peaks. I'd like to learn more about it. Square won the Palme d'Or. Yeah, wasn't expecting that. I was hearing a really mixed reaction to that one. I was kind of seeing the first reviews for the Square, and they seemed pretty negative. So I was actually really surprised that it won the Palme d'Or. But hey, congrats to, what's his name, Ruben Östlund. Sure it's great to win the Palme d'Or. Yeah, and Sofia Coppola won Best Director. That was pretty cool too. That's the thing I like about Con. Oh, it's about the lore. Okay, Secret History of Twin Peaks. Yeah, I might have to check that out. But yeah, that's the thing I love about the Cannes Film Festival, is that you can never really predict the stuff they're going to choose. It's less, or it seems to me, the Cannes Film Festival, it's less about like campaigning and stuff like that, like sort of like the Oscars, where you can sort of predict like what's going to win based on what's getting the most buzz. Cannes is always a surprise. You never really know what's going to win at that festival. So that's what I enjoy about it, is it really seems to be more about the films themselves and less about the marketing blitzkrieg behind the films. Oh shit, Willow Creek. Just realized what that is. Love it. One of the best found footage horror genre. One of the best of the found footage horror genre, in my humble opinion. Have you seen a horror film called Resolution? One of my faves. I don't think I've seen that. I'll write it down though. Resolution. Yeah, I was really surprised by Willow Creek. I tend to dismiss found footage stuff, but this was a pleasant surprise. I'm going to talk about it in a second. I guess I'll save Swiss Army Man for the second one, because that's probably going to be the more difficult one to talk about. Swiss Army Man is a real tough movie to categorize and to critique and to pick apart, so I'll save that one. Yeah, let's talk about Willow Creek. Because, yeah, it seems like not a lot of people have seen this movie. Not a lot of people have heard of it. I don't know how many people here have seen it. But I was very, very impressed. My brother told me about it when he was in Portland. He saw it in theaters. I can't remember if he talked about this last week. But, yeah, he was telling me about it. He was saying, yeah, he saw a premiere of it in Portland, was raving about it, said it was really good. Writer-director Bobcat Goldthwait was there to introduce the movie and kind of do a Q&A afterwards. He got to meet Bobcat Goldthwait and talk to him a little bit. But yeah, he was telling me a lot about it, was telling me how much he liked it, how I should see it. And yeah, when you read about it, it really doesn't seem like it's going to be that good. You know, it's a found footage horror movie, first of all, which is a subgenre that has been so done to death, and all the cliches and tropes of that genre they seem so well established. It's kind of hard for a movie, I guess, to really break out of that and do something different with the found footage genre. And yeah, I guess since so many of those kinds of movies tend to be just the same thing over and over again, anytime I hear, oh, it's a found footage movie, it's like I immediately kind of start to dismiss it. It becomes a lot more difficult for me to generate an interest in seeing that film. And then I heard it was about Bigfoot, which, of course, Bigfoot has been a premise for a lot of pretty ridiculous movies. You know, Harry and the Hendersons. There was a Mystery Science Theater episode that riffed on a Bigfoot movie. So, I mean, Bigfoot doesn't tend to make a subject for too many good movies. So I felt like this had a lot riding against it. Even going into it, after my brother telling me about it and saying how good it was, I still kind of went into this one thinking, like, honestly, how good could it be? And I was very surprised by how good it was. Now, first off, I'm a really big fan of Bobcat Goldthwait. He is a comedian, a stand-up comedian, was really popular, like, I want to say like in the late 80s, early 90s, is a very good stand-up comedian, and unfortunately, like a lot of stand-up comedians, when he tried to make the transition to feature films, he sort of lost his edge. You know, there's always something that tends to get lost in translation when a stand-up comedian goes into feature films. They kind of have to dial back their personality. They kind of have to take a bit of the edge off of their humor. It's happened to a lot of comedians, you know, like George Carlin. He was in some good movies, but he couldn't really be George Carlin when he was in those movies. He had to really pull it back. Same thing with Richard Pryor. You know, he did a lot of movies. He did some funny movies too, but he really couldn't be Richard Pryor in those movies, like full, unfiltered Richard Pryor, like he was on stage. Like none of his movies were really able to compare to his stand-up work. And Goldthwait was the same way. He did a lot of dumb movies. He did a few okay movies. And then his career just kind of crashed and burned, and slowly he's been making his way back with, continuing to do stand-up. I saw him perform in Seattle. He was very funny. And, he became a writer-director not too long ago, and has been making some surprisingly good movies. He was pretty funny in Shakes the Clown. Yeah, that was his debut as a writer-director. That one I have not seen, and I haven't seen his second one, Sleeping Dogs Lie, but everything he's done after that I have seen. I think his third movie was World's Greatest Dad, starring the late, great Robin Williams, which is a very dark, very edgy, very daring comedy about a father whose kind of jerk son, like really awful son, accidentally dies in a very embarrassing way, and so the father, to avoid humiliation, fakes a suicide to I guess ease the pain of it. And the suicide note he writes for his son kind of ends up taking off and becoming like this big sensation. Everyone is suddenly viewing this kid that, while he was alive, everyone hated. Suddenly they're remembering him as being this sensitive, artistic soul, and it starts snowballing out of control. The dad, Robin Williams, is an aspiring writer. He sees an opportunity to, make some money, get himself published under the pseudonym of his son, and it really just starts turning into this horrible thing that just goes more and more out of control as the media goes crazy over all this stuff. But yeah, it's a really funny movie, and it takes a lot of really bold chances, but I actually really like that one. And then he did God Bless America, which was a satire on pop culture and reality TV. It's basically about a guy played by Joel Murray, Bill Murray's younger brother, who discovers he's diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he has such a deep hatred for the shallowness of pop culture and a lot of American culture in general that he decides before he dies he's going to go on a killing spree and take out a bunch of reality TV stars and all these shallow people that he's hated so much in his life. Obviously, again, a very, very dark subject for a comedy, but he does it pretty well. There are some pretty brilliant satirical jabs in that movie. Again, surprisingly good based on what the premise is. And what did he do after that? I think Willow Creek followed that, which I'll be talking about in a second, but he also did a really good documentary that I think is the best thing he's ever done, and I think one of the best documentaries I've ever seen, but it was called Call Me Lucky. It came out in 2015, I think. I believe it's still available to stream on Netflix, if there are any Netflix subscribers watching right now. It's excellent. An excellent documentary about a lesser-known stand-up comedian named Barry Crimmins. I think I've talked about this movie before on the show, but I'll talk about it again because it's a great documentary. I had never heard of Barry Crimmins. Most people haven't really heard of Barry Crimmins. He's been a guy that's chosen to stay out of the spotlight, but he's been this personality that has been, nurturing all kinds of like up-and-coming comedians, like so many people that went on to become huge. Like he was kind of the one that mentored them, that encouraged them, that helped them, and he's a great comedian on his own. But yeah, not a lot of people have heard of him, so Bobcat Goldthwait kind of made this documentary about him just to pay tribute to everything he's done. And also the documentary, it ends up becoming this exploration of trauma, because Crimmins has suffered through some pretty horrible things in his life, as you discover as the documentary goes on, and it starts exploring that and how he has confronted his past trauma and how he deals with it and how he's able to overcome it. It's incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. It's very, very good. The monologue in the office in God Bless America is priceless. Yes, it is. It is. That's pretty good. Razor sharp. And yeah, now Willow Creek. I have liked pretty much every Goldthwait movie I've seen up to this point. I was really reticent about Willow Creek, but once again, I was very pleasantly surprised. Goldthwait again demonstrates a really natural talent for writing and directing, and is able to demonstrate that he has a very intelligent approach to every subject that he makes a film about, and the way that he does it. Because Willow Creek, it really cleverly plays with the found footage genre, the format, really tries to make it feel authentic more than most of the other found footage movies you see. He tries to include a lot of mistakes in the movie, a lot of clumsiness, like these people that are making the film. It's about, okay, first off, Willow Creek is about this couple that travels to this small rural town in search of Bigfoot. It was where the famous footage of Bigfoot was shot, apparently. And they decide they're going to make a documentary, and they're going to try and find Sasquatch. And so, the first 2/3 of the movie is basically them exploring the town, interviewing residents, trying to gather information about Bigfoot, about the mythology, about where he's been sighted. And so the first 2/3 is basically a comedy. It's sort of having fun with the found footage genre. They make a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of outtakes kind of left in the movie to make it feel more authentic. The lead couple, don't really take the situation that seriously. They're kind of cracking a lot of jokes, making fun of a lot of the people they meet. So basically the first 2/3, it's sort of almost a parody, or basically a comedy. Then in the last third, they go out into the woods to try and find the actual Sasquatch, and that's when the movie really makes a sudden shift and becomes this incredibly tense, incredibly suspenseful horror film. And I really was not expecting it, because the first 2/3 of the movie, are pretty light in tone, and then just that last third comes out of nowhere, and it is so effective, so just unexpectedly effective. It took me completely by surprise, and I was very drawn in, and I was not expecting this, but I was actually frightened by this movie. I never thought Bigfoot would be such a sinister presence, but Goldthwait really pulled it off. Especially in particular, there's one shot in this movie that is an absolute masterpiece, and it is where the movie really takes a tonal shift and starts to become very, very scary. But it's this extended shot of just one night of the couple in their tent, and it's basically, there are no cuts. There might be some hidden cuts somewhere, but it goes on for what feels like 10, 15 minutes, and it's just them sitting in the tent with the camera on their faces, listening to the sounds outside, and trying to figure out, is there something out there? Is there something coming to get us? Is that, just an animal? Is that a person? Is that Bigfoot? They don't know, and they just listen. And the patience that Goldthwait has with this shot of just holding on their faces. There are minutes at a time where it's just kind of them just listening. And we're listening to the soundtrack, we're listening to every little noise, and we're just watching their faces. And we're getting drawn in the same way as them. We're starting out kind of it's just somebody messing with them. But then as the sounds get weirder and weirder, like them, we start getting more and more frightened. It's so good. And then the last few scenes of the movie are just absolutely terrifying. It totally took me by surprise. I was not expecting the movie to be that good or that effective. Is Bobcat Goldthwait the guy who was in the Police Academy films, or am I getting muddled up with someone else? Yes, Bobcat Goldthwait actually is, yeah. Oh, somebody already answered it for me, so yeah. I'm superfluous here. Sorry. Yeah, it's 12 or 13 minutes long, the tent scene. I'm digging the way you're elucidating upon this, man. Thank you. Yeah, tent scene. Yeah, so I walked away from this thing very pleasantly surprised. I was expecting, if anything, for it to be just, an enjoyable movie, a relatively good found footage movie. And what it turned out to be was one of the scariest horror films that I've seen in a while. One that, unlike the vast majority of horror films, actually made me afraid of the dark that night. And so that was pretty fun. And I highly, highly recommend this movie for anybody who's a fan of horror films and looking for something really good that might have gone a bit under the radar, that they might have missed. I'm not sure exactly how you can see this movie. I think the only place it's really available to stream is through Amazon Prime with the Showtime app, which my brother has because he's because he's getting it for Twin Peaks. And so I've just kind of been going through the stuff that's on Showtime, and I found that, thought, hey, I'll give it a shot, and did not regret it. Really liked this movie. So yeah, check it out if you can. Oh right, Punch Drunk Love and Sideways Sleeves. I keep forgetting about that. I'm sorry, but yeah, I'll try to make sure I do that. But yeah, more Bobcat Goldthwait movies I see, just the more I'm impressed by that guy. He's sharp. He knows exactly what he's doing with every movie. So yeah, I hope he does another film really soon, because he keeps getting better and better. I mean, his control over the tone of Willow Creek is just masterful. I was very deeply impressed. And once again, I'm going to say, check out Call Me Lucky, the documentary. It is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. So I think that's about all I have to say about Willow Creek. So I think we can move on to Swiss Army Man. And I gotta think how I'm gonna try to approach this one. I guess first off I should try and explain what it is, just in case anybody doesn't know. What was the name of the embarrassing suicide of the son? That sounds good too. That was World's Greatest Dad. Yeah, Robin Williams is excellent in that one. It's Robin Williams is great when he's in his manic mode and just improvising nonstop. He does that better than anybody, but I really love Robin Williams when he's kind of toned down a little bit and he's restraining a lot of that energy and he's playing a more realistic character. I'm always impressed every time I watch him in a more serious role. How good of an actor he was. Like Robin Williams wasn't just a great comedian; he was a truly great actor. And World's Greatest Dad is one of the films that really shows that. There are some scenes in World's Greatest Dad where they're not going for comedy whatsoever. They're going for hard-hitting drama, and Williams is just heartbreaking in those scenes. He sells it so well. He was an amazing talent. It's so sad that he had to leave the way he did. But he left behind some great work. Is it a violent, bloody film? I have a hard time with that. If you're talking about Willow Creek, no, it isn't. I can't remember any on-screen violence or blood. Anything that is really terrifying, it's all implied. Very well implied. It really plays with your imagination. So it should be good to watch Willow Creek. Yeah, it's just tonally, it's very intense and very frightening. But I don't believe you see anything really viscerally disturbing. At least I don't remember. Catch the Shane Carruth cameo? I did. Yeah, what is Shane Carruth doing in Swiss Army Man? That was such a shock. But it was awesome to see him. That really took me just totally unaware. I had no idea he was in it. I have a love-hate relationship with Swiss Army Man. I'll just have to watch it again. Yeah. Just say that Swiss Army Man is a weird A24 comedy. Okay. Ooh, audio commentary. I'd love to listen to an audio commentary on World's Greatest Dad. Goldthwait's such an intelligent person, like most comedians. But yeah, the way he approaches filmmaking, he just really genuinely understands what it is that he's doing with each movie. World's Greatest Dad was so sad to me. It is. It's a really sad movie. I mean, it's very funny and very dark, and a really brutal satire, I guess, of the way a person's memory can be distorted after death, which, yeah, takes on an added poignance after the passing of William. So, yeah, I watched it when he was still alive, so I guess watching it now, it takes on a very different context. I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, but watching it after his passing, yeah, I'm sure the pathos of that movie is really accentuated. It's probably much, much sadder now. It's a sad movie anyways, but yeah, it's probably even sadder now that Williams is gone. Yeah, I didn't think about that. It might be a lot harder to watch now. But yeah, Swiss Army Man. How much should I reveal about this? Because if you haven't seen it, really the best way to approach it. I'd seen a trailer for this movie before I watched it, and I read like little bits and pieces of reviews. But yeah, it's one that has really divided people. It's been one that people have hated. It's been one that people have loved. I honestly didn't know if I was going to watch it. I wasn't sure, yeah, what I thought about it when I heard the idea. But yeah, I got some suggestions to check it out, so I did. I sat down and watched it, and I ended up really liking it. I wasn't sure if I was going to, but I did. And I listened to an interview with the directors. I don't remember their names. I think they're billed as Daniels because they're both named Daniel. But yeah, again, they were directors that had a bizarre idea and actually they actually seemed to know how to tackle it. They knew the tone they wanted to hit, and they had the talent to hit it. But Swiss Army Man was a request from me for you to review. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I get a lot of requests from you. And usually they end up being pretty good, so thank you for that. I also checked out Children Who Chase Lost Voices. I saw that one as well. Man, that was a great anime movie. I'd never heard of it before, but man, was it good. So thank you for that one as well. I love the idea of the movie. The overall concept was good. There were some funny moments, but the excessive toilet humor was too much for me. I can understand that. I think it would have worked better as a short film, maybe. Yeah, I know what the gist of the plot is. Daniel Radcliffe's a corpse with many utilitarian uses. Well, yes, essentially, yeah. Yeah, so I think probably the best way, if you really don't know a lot about this movie, is to just go into it blind and be taken totally, just go along for the ride, and just let it wash over you. But yeah, essentially the concept of the movie is Paul Dano is a man trapped on a desert island who finds a dead body, played by Daniel Radcliffe, who washes up on the shores one day. And he discovers that this corpse can basically be used for whatever purpose he can think of. Like he can use the corpse's flatulence to ride it like a jet ski. He can use the corpse's jaw to bite through things, and the uses only get more ridiculous from there. So it's like an absurd comedy, like a surreal comedy, but this film is really just in a category of its own because it's also a drama. It has a lot of fun with this crazy premise, but it also tries to be a genuinely effective drama and character story and love story at the same time. It's actually a story about loneliness and connection and people learning to accept who they are and be less concerned with what others think of them. And yeah, people mention the toilet humor. There's a lot of toilet humor, but that's actually one of the main themes of the movie as well, is learning to accept yourself and all of the weird, gross bodily functions, to embrace all of those things and to move past them. I think it's a film in some way about acceptance, accepting yourself, accepting other people, and just, I guess, accepting your place in life, something like that. But I was actually, there's a surprising amount of depth to the movie, I thought, as well. But I did like it. I'd heard a lot of mixed things about it. I think this movie premiered at Sundance a couple years ago, and I believe the reaction at Sundance was extremely negative. I think a few people called it the worst movie that has ever played at Sundance. I think it got booed at the premiere. So initially, when it first played, it was being called like this disaster, this catastrophe. And then it started playing at more festivals. It opened in theaters. And some good reviews started coming in. Some defenders of the film started popping up. And I would call myself a defender of the movie. It's the debut of two directors who started in music videos. I haven't seen any of their videos. I guess they did the video for that song, Turned Down for What? Which I haven't seen, but I've heard that song so much on the radio that I'm really annoyed by it now, so I don't know if I'll end up watching the video. But they demonstrate a really natural talent as filmmakers in their first movie. Visually, just on a craft technical level, the movie's incredibly well made. There's a level of polish here, a level of stylishness and creativity in the way it's shot, in the way it's edited, in the way it's conceptualized, that is very, very impressive. It's an incredibly well put together movie that really finds a lot of creative visual things to do with its concept. Of using montages, of using diegetic music, special effects, all kinds of things. I was really impressed by the film's creativity and its ingenuity. Oh yeah. Yeah, it does have an impressive cast for being such a crazy idea. The Danielses, they must be pretty persuasive to convince these actors to do a film like this. Or they must have just demonstrated that they knew how they were going to tackle this thing. They knew how they were going to make it work. And I think it does. I mean, obviously, it's so strange, it's so bizarre, and it's so unashamed of itself that, I can fully understand why a lot of people didn't really like it so much. But I thought it was pretty damn good. An exceptionally well-made movie. Very funny, if you're willing to, embrace the lowbrow humor. And also surprisingly affecting as well, because the actors fully commit to it. I think that was the thing I liked most about it, is that it didn't try to play it safe with a lot of irony. I see that a lot now, and it's starting to kind of bother me. You know, I mean, irony is not a bad thing in a certain dosage, but you see so many movies being so self-referential and so ironic now and so detached from themselves. I start to get a little bothered by it, because to me, it takes away one of the essential components of artistic expression, which is vulnerability. I think if you're making a work of art, if you're expressing yourself through art, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and take a real chance. And I feel like irony is kind of a cop-out. It's a way of saying, in case people didn't like it, in case it didn't work, it's a way of protecting yourself, you know? You can say, like, oh, I was being ironic. I wasn't being serious with it. It's an ironic thing. It's a way of trying to remove that element of vulnerability, and I just don't like it. I think if you're going to do something, no matter how ridiculous it is, even if it's something like Swiss Army Man, I think you should commit. I think you should really put yourself out there and dedicate to it, which everybody on this movie does. And so I really admired that aspect of it, that the actors, weren't playing it ironically. They were playing it just dead straight and really trying to hit the emotion as hard as they could. And the directors as well. They weren't trying to undermine any of it. They weren't trying to, cut the legs out from under themselves by trying to constantly point out to the audience, isn't this ridiculous? I mean, come on, we know how ridiculous this is. We're not taking this seriously. I mean, they have fun with it, but at the same time, they fully commit to the idea and fully commit to the drama as well. And so I like that. And to me, that's the way, no matter what idea you're doing, no matter what kind of film you're doing, you should commit to it. You should put yourself out there, you should make yourself vulnerable, and you should take a chance on it. Don't retreat into irony. Put yourself out there. Guillermo del Toro said, success is failing on your own terms. If you fail, it's okay, as long as you fail on your own terms. So, love it or hate it, I think Swiss Army Man is really something to be admired. That yeah, these actors and these directors and everyone were fully committed to this concept and really took a chance on it. It's so different. It's so bizarre. It's so unusual. That for me it worked. And I love films like that really just come out of nowhere, are in a category of their own, and don't try to retreat from their own strangeness, that just plow into it headlong. So I liked it. I would recommend it. I think this is a movie that should be seen just for its sheer uniqueness. I don't think there will ever be another movie like this. So for that reason, I would recommend you at least give it a shot. Some people are going to hate it. That's okay. But I would say at least give it a shot. Nicholas Winding Refn said, the world would be a boring place if we all made safe films. I think that's definitely true. They made the movie they wanted to make. Yeah, it's not a bad movie at all, just not my cup of tea. Hey, that's fine, I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of people would not like this movie. A lot of people have not liked this movie, and I understand that. But you have to give the movie credit, for being so committed to itself. Brilliant film. I bet it looks beautiful on Blu-ray. Yeah, again, it's a very well shot movie. So I'll be curious to see what the Danielses do after this. I don't know how you can follow up a movie like Swiss Army Man, but hopefully they find something to capitalize on the opportunity they've made for themselves. Because this really shows they know how to make a movie. So I don't know if they're going to continue doing stuff like this, or if they're going to try something more conventional, but it's obvious they are pretty damn talented. What other movie would you compare it to? If you're talking about Swiss Army Man, I don't think there is anything to compare it to, other than maybe movies that are also just kind of in their own genre, in their own category. Like, I kind of thought, when it was over, I thought about The Greasy Strangler. That was another movie so far outside of any convention that it was really just in its own genre. So I guess it was the one that popped into my head when the movie was over. If I had to compare it to anything, I would say like The Greasy Strangler, of just movies that are not like any other. That the only thing you can compare them to is themselves. But I would say Swiss Army Man is maybe a bit more ambitious than The Greasy Strangler, because there is a lot of irony to The Greasy Strangler. It's also one that tries to be ambiguous. It tries to make you unsure whether it's being serious or whether it's being, satirical or what. It tries not to tell you, what the tone is. So that's what I liked about Greasy Strangler. I like Swiss Army Man a little bit more, because the whole way through, like, these guys are not just trying to make a joke here. They're actually trying to make a legitimately good movie. No matter how crazy the idea is, they're really trying to make it work. Castaway meets Weekend at Bernie's. Right, that's it. Let's see, what else did I watch? I love The Greasy Strangler so much. That was the first question I ever asked you on the first of these streams that I watched. Hey, cool. It's one that sticks in the memory. It certainly is. That's another just polarizing, love it or hate it movie. But it definitely is not one you will forget after you see it. I love those kinds of movies. So I've seen so many movies in my life, and the vast majority of them I can't really recall too much from. If I see a movie and it has one great scene that really sticks in my mind, and even, no matter how much time has passed, if I can still recall, just that one scene, then it's like, okay, that was a special movie. That was something worth watching. But I mean, the vast majority of them, I can't recall anything. They just kind of chug along. They begin, they end, and then that's it. And they don't really leave much of an impact on you. So I mean, the movies that can at least be so daring and so different that whether you really like them or whether you really hate them, you remember them. That is something that I cherish. It's just a movie that sticks in your mind, for good or bad. A movie that just won't leave your imagination, that won't leave your consciousness. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah, I saw a couple other movies that were recommended to me. Let me check my list here. Oh, I saw The Addiction. Somebody recommended The Addiction to me, the Abel Ferrara movie. I finally saw that. It just got added to Hulu. Yeah, so I managed to check that out. I'm not sure who recommended that to me. Even something awful like a Serbian film? That is a tough question. I've never seen a Serbian film, so I can't comment on that. I've read a few synopses, I've heard of its reputation, that it is supposed to be very, very extreme. Has a lot of very controversial material in it. But I have not seen the film myself. So, and I don't really like commenting so much on movies I haven't seen. Making judgments about them based on speculation. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that one. That's a good point. Or Martyrs, haven't seen that one either, unfortunately. But that's a good question. If I see those movies, I'd be able to give you a definite answer. But at this point, I'm not able to. Maybe something like Ishi the Killer, because I have seen that one. Did not like it. Really did not enjoy that film. But there is a lot about it that I still remember to this day. As awful as it was, stay away from a Serbian film. It's horrible and nasty. Yeah, I've had some people recommend it to me, and some people, tell me to avoid it at all costs. But I mean, even something like Ishi the Killer, which I really did not like, it was certainly memorable, so I do have to give it credit for that. As horrible as some of the images were, I can't get them out of my head, for better or for worse. So I guess that's something. I think it's better than, I think it's better than a movie that will leave absolutely no impression. Whether you leave a good impression or a bad impression, I think anything's better than leaving no impression at all. I have a quote up on my wall. I forget where the quote originated, but it goes, "What comes into the world and disturbs nothing deserves neither consideration nor patience." And that's something I do believe. You've got to make a splash. You've got to try and make a splash somehow. Actually, Martyrs has some definite artistic merit. I didn't like Ishi either. Seconded the Serbian film comment. Wish I hadn't watched it. Oh, I watched Rumblefish on Criterion Collection Blu-ray. Wow, the greatest audio and perfect picture transfer. I want to see it. I do like Rumblefish. There's a lot of really underrated Francis Ford Coppola movies out there. Obviously, something like The Conversation. I guess that's now considered like a classic of the 70s. But I still feel like even something like The Conversation tends to get overshadowed by like the Godfather movies or Apocalypse Now. But yeah, he's done a lot of really great stuff. I think One from the Heart is one of his best movies. Peggy Sue Got Married is a really fun movie. Yeah, he's got a lot of underrated stuff out there. Rumblefish is one of them. Watched. Even worse was the pathetic justification the director tried to give for its excesses. Yeah, it's a tough subject. I'm not sure. Again, I haven't seen a Serbian film, so I can't really comment upon it. But yeah, it does seem to elicit some extreme reactions, which does make me rather fascinated. I think probably one day I will try and watch it. I don't know what I'll think, but I'll probably give it a shot one of these days. Oh, Human Centipede is another one. Yeah, the Human Centipede movies are kind of those films that really just try to go as far as they possibly can, with mixed results. Yeah, the first Human Centipede is actually pretty restrained. I sort of liked it. I didn't think it was great, but I sort of liked the first Human Centipede movie. If anything, just for the performance of Dieter Laser, who plays the mad scientist that creates the Human Centipede. He was great. Like, his performance in the first Human Centipede is amazing. It's a great, great performance. The second film, yeah, it really doesn't have anything I would try to defend in it. Great photography. The black and white photography is really good. And conceptually, it's kind of interesting that the way the trilogy is linked, that it's like the second movie is about a guy who watches the first movie and is inspired to do the same thing. That's kind of an interesting, like, meta idea. But other than that, there really wasn't anything I would say I admired or respected in that movie. But there are a lot of really rather extreme images that I do remember pretty vividly, for better or for worse. So take what you will from that. Did you notice the Shane Carruth cameo on Swiss Army Man? I did. I actually yelled at the screen when I saw him. I was so excited. Yeah, I had no idea he was in it, but that was a lot of fun for me. Whoa, Coppola said in the audio commentary for the conversation that the first cut was 5.5 hours long. But you know, that's not unusual. Most movies, yeah, their initial cuts tend to be pretty long. The first cut of Easy Rider was like 5 hours, and they cut it down to 90 minutes. So yeah, that's not uncommon for extremely long work print cuts. Are you a fan of Frank Henenlotter's films? I think I've only seen one. If I'm thinking of the right guy, he did Basket Case, right? I saw Basket Case, and I sort of liked it. That was a fun one. I did like it. I did like Basket Case. That was a pretty fun B movie. But yeah, he did another one that I really want to see. It's actually on the Showtime app. Oh, okay, I'm thinking of the right Frank Henenlotter. Okay. But yeah, he did another movie that I really want to see. I've been wanting to see for a while. And I saw that it's on the Showtime app on Amazon, so I'm going to have to watch it hopefully soon. But Frankenhooker. I've heard a lot about that one. Yeah, Frankenhooker, Bad Biology. I really want to see Frankenhooker. Bill Murray, the year it came out, he said, if you see only one film this year, see Frankenhooker. He thought it was the best movie of that year. So yeah, I want to see it. My brother saw it. He said it was pretty funny. So yeah, I like Frank Henenlotter. I like his sense of humor, his outrageousness. But yeah, his movies are easier to take, than, say, like the Human Centipede guy or those other people, because he really has a sense of humor. He tries to do these crazy, outrageous films, but he doesn't really try to make them really aggressively disturbing. He just essentially makes comedies. So yeah, I like his stuff. He's sort of like Stuart Gordon. He has a really strong sense of humor that I enjoy. My father's from Yugoslavia, so that's why I said that. Oh, stay away from a Serbian film? Okay. I'm Serbian, and I think the Serbian film is shit. Are you a fan of Planet Terror / Death Proof? A little bit. Honestly, Grindhouse, yeah, the Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez double feature. I think the best part about that movie was the trailers, the fake trailers that they put in the middle. That was actually the most effective part of that film, I thought. Planet Terror is It's fun. You know, Robert Rodriguez, he really knows how to make a very energetic, very entertaining action movie. Planet Terror is not his best. And the thing that really kind of spoiled it for me was just, like I said, it was the irony. It was too self-conscious. It was too self-aware. I kind of wanted him to commit more to the idea, but the Rose McGowan character, the way she's constantly kind of like being sarcastic, I thought he made a really big mistake in the way he wrote that character, that she was just too self-aware. I kind of wanted the movie to be a bit more straight-faced about itself. But, you know, it's not a boring movie, I will say that. And then, yeah, Death Proof was kind of boring. Yeah. Wanted a few more car chases in that one. A little too much dialogue. But I guess, you know, the way you have to look at Death Proof is not really so much as a Grindhouse movie, more just as another Quentin Tarantino movie. But conceptually, I like what they tried to do, of trying to recapture a forgotten cinematic experience. And I like the way Death Proof is shot. Planet Terror, they kind of like, they digitally added all of the film damage and the mistakes and everything, which, you know, is fine. However each director's going to make their movie is fine, but I respect more the directors that try to go for authenticity. You know, the directors that go that extra mile to try and achieve an effect. And Tarantino is certainly one of those directors, so I like Death Proof just aesthetically, how Tarantino actually, you know, damaged the negative, you know, dragged the film around the floor of the editing room to get all the scratches and the damage and everything. So I like that. I can't think of any other movies that have done that, but really the most fun thing, the most effective thing about Grindhouse were all those fake trailers. Like the Edgar Wright one, Don't, that's a really good one. Even Eli Roth's, was it Thanksgiving was the one he did? Even that one was good. And I really don't like Eli Roth. But even his trailer was pretty funny. And Machete too, yeah. Machete was actually better than Planet Terror. Not the movie, the trailer. I haven't seen the actual feature film Machete yet. Love that film so much. Oh, Conversation. Have you seen the famous work print cut of Apocalypse Now? With, I believe, a long scene in a plantation owner's house. I've seen Apocalypse Now Redux, the 3-hour cut of Apocalypse Now. I don't like it as much. I don't like it as much as the theatrical cut. I think the movie's pretty much fine as it was released. I don't really think they needed to add anything. And Apocalypse Now is one of my favorite movies. But, you know, there's some interesting material that was left on the cutting room floor, but I think it was best left on the cutting room floor. Frankenhooker has been playing on the UK Horror Channel regularly. It was on the other night. Pretty funny film. Death Proof was awful. Not even Kurt Russell and Rosario Dawson could save that debacle. Yeah. I wasn't too into it. Mark Kermode, in his review of Adam Sandler's film Jack and Jill, tried to think of anything positive to say about it. He said the aspect ratio was right. That's pretty funny. Oh, really? There are scratch-free options of Death Proof and Planet Terror on the Blu-rays. That's interesting. I wonder how they did the scratch-proof Death Proof. Yeah, because what I heard is that Tarantino actually damaged the film physically. I personally prefer the longer version of Apocalypse Now. That's interesting. Yeah, for me, just those scenes go on too long. The added scenes, that is. I think the original Apocalypse Now just had a perfect pacing. You've got that main dramatic thrust of the film, which is traveling down the river in the boat, and along the way, you have all these interesting stops on the journey. And I thought the theatrical cut of Apocalypse Now did a really good job of balancing the time on the boat and off the boat. You don't spend too long on the boat, you don't spend too long off the boat. The movie's always moving forward at this very solid, steady pace. And Redux, I thought, just meandered too long. You spend too much time off the boat in that one, so that you start to lose a little bit of focus on where we're heading in that story. It was never boring, always captivating. Okay, well. Kermode is great. Henry, you just mentioned the damage to the film. Have you seen Begotten, the E. Elias Merheich film? He did the great film with Willem Dafoe about the making of Nosferatu. Yeah, that's a really underrated movie. Shadow of the Vampire, that's a great one. I love Shadow of the Vampire, and I have seen Begotten. That is an interesting one, a very interesting one. Anyway, in Begotten, Merheich spent hours to get this very weird and grainy and damaged look to the film. Haven't seen Redux. Apocalypse Now is pretty much close to perfection. Yeah, I don't think, personally, yeah, obviously, there are some disagreements, which is fine, which is good, which is the purpose of art. But yeah, personally, I didn't think it needed to be altered. I thought it was pretty much perfect as it was. But that's just me. That's interesting about Begotten, though. That is a very strange movie. It's one of those. There's not really anything. Now that I think about it, I guess there is some very disturbing imagery in it. But to me, it's kind of one of those ones. Even in the scenes where you don't see anything like bloody or gory, it's one of those movies that just has a very disturbing, strange atmosphere to it. It's sort of like that. Who did that one? Jack Smith, I think his name was. There's this 60s experimental film called Flaming Creatures that I guess even though I wouldn't really call it graphic or visceral or really too assaulting in its imagery, but there's just something about the tone of it, the look of it, and the weird way the soundtrack is done, where it's kind of muffled. You can't really hear anything too clearly. There was something about that movie that really creeped me out, and that I've never seen really replicated in another film. Begotten was sort of like that, but there was something really potent about Flaming Creatures that really disturbed me, even though viscerally it's not the most disturbing movie I've ever seen. Yeah, there's something about those like avant-garde kind of films that is really creepy. Shadow of the Vampire, forgot the name, yeah. Begotten took something insane, like 5 hours on every minute of film to achieve that very bizarre visual effect. Wow. How frequently do you watch films? As often as I can. I used to be, when I was like in high school, when I was really devouring movies, I would watch like 3 or 4 films a day. You know, I would get home from school, I wouldn't do my homework, I wouldn't do anything I was supposed to do. I would just start watching movies and just watch films non-stop every spare moment I had of the day. Can't really do that anymore. But I still try to watch, I guess on average, at least one film every couple days. I still try to stay pretty frequent. I'm not watching as many movies as I wish I could. But yeah, I still try to watch films fairly regularly. And I was gonna say I try to remain curious about things too. I try to obviously there are exceptions, I'm not perfect, but I try never to close myself off to any kind of film either. But now that I think about it, yeah, there are plenty that I've closed myself off to. Like, I pretty much have no interest in watching superhero movies and like Marvel stuff and stuff like that. Not trying to say it's bad or horrible. Obviously, there are plenty of people that enjoy those movies. That's fine. But personally, yeah, it's not the stuff I'm really interested in. So yeah, there's more of my hypocrisy. Oh yeah, I try to remain open to all films, except those. But hey, I guess none of us are perfect. Henry, what's your favorite Jarmusch film? Personally, I love the man. Yeah, I love Jarmusch too. He's done a lot that I've really liked. I think Down by Law is great. Only Lovers Left Alive I thought was great. Ghost Dog is great. Coffee and Cigarettes is great. Night on Earth is great. But I think probably my favorite is Dead Man. That is really an extraordinary film. Yeah, Robbie Mueller's cinematography, the performances, the amazing cast, the really dark, violent tone that Jarmusch hit. None of his movies have ever been that harsh, from what I recall. But man, Dead Man is a pretty vicious experience in some scenes. But yeah, I thought it was great, and the score by Neil Young was amazing too. I love. There have been a couple movies. Some of my favorite movies have had musical scores done in this way. Like Paris, Texas was done in this way. But the way Neil Young did the score supposedly is that he just plugged in his guitar, and he just started watching the movie, and whatever feelings, emotions started to rise up in him from experiencing the film, he played that on his guitar, and that's how the score to Dead Man was done. It was just him improvising all of these sounds and tones and different musical elements just from watching the film and feeling what he was feeling. I love that, though. The score to Dead Man is so great. It's one of the few film scores I actually own on CD, but it's great. I know you asked, Henry, but I'm going to say Down by Law. Soft spot for Ghost Dog 2. Yeah, Down by Law is another great one. I do love that movie. Tom Waits, John Lurie, Roberto Benigni. That's quite a trifecta. You're right about the creepiness in old avant-garde films. The films of Stephen Arnold and Franz Suartes are good examples. I do not know their work. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't delved too deeply into the avant-garde scene. But, yeah, you do discover some interesting stuff. Stephen Arnold and Franz Suartes. Okay. I'll have to look into them. I think film has become the best medium for superhero stories. Modern cape comics are utterly, utterly shit. Well, I guess they have captured the popular imagination. I mean, I don't think films become successful by accident. You can't manufacture passion. You know, people have to be genuinely interested in seeing a movie in huge numbers for it to become a success. And Marvel, they've hit upon something that people really respond to. So yeah, I have to give them credit for that. Henry, what do you think about Hal Hartley's stuff? Oh, I watched a couple of his movies a long time ago. I think he was one of those directors that I discovered in high school. It's been too long since I've seen his films, though. I remember not really understanding them at the time. Yeah, but I think to really comment on him, I'd probably have to revisit his films. It's been too long. Yeah, I don't remember enough. And I don't think I had a really strong reaction at the time. Yeah, I think I'd have to go back and watch some of his movies. I remember... What was the early one he did? Trust, I think it was called? I remember thinking that one was good, but I don't remember why. Yeah, so sorry. Oh, but yeah, I did watch The Addiction, the Abel Ferrara movie, the Abel Ferrara vampire movie. Yeah, that was an interesting one. It just got added, a bunch of Abel Ferrara's movies actually just got added to Hulu to stream, which I thought was very cool. They just added a bunch of Pedro Almodovar movies. He's one I really want to go back and rewatch his stuff too. Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen like All About My Mother or Bad Education, and they're all available to stream now, so I'm gonna have to check those out. And yeah, some Ferrara stuff too. So I watched The Addiction, which was interesting. You know, Ferrara's one I'm kind of split on. I really like him as a director, but I haven't enjoyed too many of his movies. I think his best film is by far Bad Lieutenant. That's an incredible, incredible movie. Everything else, you know, I don't know. There are elements that I really like, but the movies aren't able to hold my attention the whole way through, you know? They kind of meander, they kind of lose focus, they kind of lose track of themselves. The Addiction was kind of the same way. There's some really interesting ideas behind it. It's a really interesting, unusual take on vampirism, of equating it to drug addiction. And the theological explorations in the movie were interesting. But just as a story, as an emotional experience, it left me kind of cold. And towards the end, I felt like the film really started to lose steam. I wasn't so interested in it in like the last third. I was just kind of waiting for it to be over. And I react that way to a lot of Ferrara's films, you know? Even King of New York is kind of that way. Like, as good as Christopher Walken is in that movie, and as good as the whole cast is, the whole ensemble cast, it's kind of like, there are a lot of sections in King of New York that just kind of meander and lose track of the character, lose track of the story. You know, Ferrara's an interesting one. He captures New York better than any director, I think. And there are some great New York directors, you know, like Scorsese, obviously, Jim Jarmusch, quite a few others. But I think Ferrara, he really captures a grittiness and an authenticity that no other director has really matched. But I think it's always interesting to exploring his work. There's always at least one or two things in each movie that I see that I really like. Lily Taylor's great. She stars in The Addiction. And I love her. She's such an underrated actress. So Lily Taylor was great. And yeah, the Portrait of New York. The film is shot in black and white. So yeah, the Gothic Portrait of New York was very good too. But yeah, there's just some weaknesses in story and screenplay that I felt really held the film back. I think Bad Lieutenant is the only time Ferrara just totally hit a bullseye. And I think a lot of that is owed to Harvey Keitel. How amazing his performance is in Bad Lieutenant. Bad Lieutenant, I think, is one of the most self-confessional films I've ever seen. It is so painful, but it's incredible. Harold and Maude is a classic. That it is. Harold and Maude is great. Hal Ashby is another really underrated director. I love Hal Ashby. Harold and Maude, Coming Home, and Being There, I think, is one of the greatest movies ever made. Being There is fantastic. Peter Sellers' best performance. And that's right, yes, I am saying it's even better than Dr. Strangelove. I love Being There. Oh, got a cat at the door. Hello. I don't particularly like most Kate films, don't get me wrong. Well, hey, you can still respect something even if you don't personally enjoy it. Trust is great, one of my favorites of his. Yeah, I'll have to try and see if I can rewatch Hal Hartley's movies. What are your thoughts on Dr. Strangelove? I think it's a masterpiece. I don't know. Dr. Strangelove I'm kind of split on. Obviously, it's a classic. One of the most iconic films ever made. Obviously there are images in there, lines of dialogue in there that have been parodied and referenced so many times. The film really is like a cinematic cultural landmark. But personally, it's never been one I've really enjoyed all that much. I always hear it referred to as one of the funniest movies ever made. I don't tend to laugh very much when I watch it. It's brilliantly shot, and there are some great performances, like George C. Scott and Slim Pickens, and the many Peter Sellers performances. They're all great, and there are some really good moments in the movie. But overall, I don't know, I think it's sort of held back by Kubrick's obsessiveness. The amount of research he does, and just the way he approaches a story where it's just got to be airtight. I think so much of the movie is just exposition. It's the people seated around the war room talking about every little aspect, every little detail of, the bomber plane and the situation, and approaching every possible solution to the problem of impending nuclear war. And that's like the first 45 minutes of the movie is just all this exposition, all this dialogue. And it's not until the second half that I feel it really starts getting into the comedy and the real satire and the absurdism. And that's my favorite part, is the second half of Dr. Strangelove. The first half, it takes so long to get going. I'm somebody who hates expositional dialogue, and like the first 45 minutes is just nothing but expositional dialogue. So for me, it's kind of difficult to get through that, but then the second half gets really good. So I don't know. I have my problems with Dr. Strangelove. I acknowledge that it's a classic, that it's an iconic piece of American cinema, but I have my problems with it. I'm not able to really thoroughly enjoy it. Yeah, I think sometimes there are times when Kubrick's obsessiveness was really a benefit to him and really elevated his movies to this extraordinary plane. And there are other times where I really feel his obsessiveness held him back. That he was just too focused on, I gotta get this detail right. I gotta get this detail right. I gotta get this detail right. And I think in a comedy that really holds you back. Because we want to laugh when we watch a comedy. We don't really care so much if the plot is airtight. So, I think he should have just let a few things go and just focused more on trying to get the laughs. But that's me. That's just my personal take on it. Swiss Army Man is my favorite film of 2016. 2016 was an amazing year for film, though. I'm trying to think. What came out in 2016? I don't know. It just seems like it's nothing but Star Wars and superhero stuff now. It's easy for me to lose track of the really good stuff. Didn't Ferrara release something recently? Bad Lieutenant and King of New York. I fucking love them. Interestingly, King of New York uses vampire cinematic tropes. Huh. I'm trying to think of what those were. I mean, Chris Walken just looks like a vampire naturally, so there's something. But yeah, Ferrara's been releasing a couple of movies recently. He's never stopped directing. He's been releasing films pretty consistently. Do we have another cat? Can't tell. Maybe it was just my chair. But yeah, he did a couple movies recently. He just released, not just, like 2013, I think, he released, Welcome to New York with Gerard Depardieu. It's based on the Dominique Strauss-Kahn scandal. That wasn't bad. That was, a pretty vicious, indictment of power and politics. Again, I have the same problems that I do with most other Ferrara films. It's meandering, it's kind of unfocused in a lot of sections, but there are some definite strengths to it, too. You can tell it's a very angry movie. Pasolini. He just released Pasolini. That was like 2015? Yeah, it stars Willem Dafoe as Pier Paolo Pasolini. It's about the last few weeks in Pasolini's life. I really want to see that one, but it has yet to receive a distribution. So there's no way to see it right now, at least in the United States. But I hope it comes out soon. I'd really like to see it. Yeah, Welcome to New York is another kind of difficult one to see because it's based on a true story. And the guy that is portrayed by Gerard Depardieu in the movie, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, he's actually suing Ferrara and the producer of the movie. So yeah, the movie's kind of locked into this legal battle right now, so it's a little bit difficult to see in most parts of the world, I think. But it did get added to Netflix streaming. I watched it there. So eloquent, you could be a film critic for a magazine. I wish I could do this professionally. That'd be really nice. Wasn't The Funeral a Ferrara film? Great ensemble cast. Yes, The Funeral is a Ferrara film. Who's in that one? I think Chris Walken, again, he's worked with Walken a couple times. And Chris Penn and Vincent Gallo, another one of my favorite actors. Don't see Vincent Gallo in enough movies. Every time I do see him, though, he's always great. I just saw him in Arizona Dream. That was another movie I just watched recently that I really liked. Yeah, a stream a couple weeks ago, people were mentioning the director Emir Kusturica, I think is how you say his name, and I had never seen one of his films. And so I started looking around, seeing if there was one I could see somehow, and I found Arizona Dream. I think it was the only English language movie he did, so it's the most readily available in the US. But it stars like Johnny Depp and Faye Dunaway, and two of my favorite actors who I actually just mentioned, Lily Taylor and Vincent Gallo in the same movie. So great cast. And Jerry Lewis, too. Comedian Jerry Lewis. He hasn't done too many dramatic roles, but he's another one that when he does, he's surprisingly good. Like, he's great in Scorsese's King of Comedy. Really good. And he's good in really good in Arizona Dream, too. But I really like that one. It had this almost like Terry Gilliam kind of feel of celebrating the beautiful dreamer, you know? I really liked it. It was a very eccentric movie, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for its eccentricities. Yeah, I really want to see more Costa Rica movies now. Somehow I knew you were going to say Being There. This Kubrick expert did a video about its connections to 2001. Rob Ager, very perceptive film analyst, and I would say he knows so much about Kubrick. His theories about The Shining are very, very interesting. Also 2001 and A Clockwork Orange. He's done really perceptive videos on all those. His channel is called Collective Learning? I'll have to look him up. Sounds interesting. Being There in 2001. I wouldn't have thought there was a connection there. Rob Ager. 2016. Oh, The Witch, Arrival, Free Fire, Sing Street, La La Land, The Handmaiden, Moonlight, Nocturnal Animals, Hunt for the Wilder People, Neon Demon, Ouija, Origin of Evil, Green Room. I've seen most of those, and yes, there are some pretty good movies. You're right, yeah. I could go on and on. The Lobster, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Manchester by the Sea, Under the Shadow, The Nice Guys, Pee-wee's Big Holiday, which, yeah, was surprisingly good. Hush, The Jungle Book, Wiener Dog, The Wailing, Silence, Graduation. Point made. Whoa, there's more. Patterson, The Salesman, Tickled, I, Daniel Blake, Jackie, Endless Poetry, Hell or High Water, It's Only the End of the World, After the Storm, Christine, The Red Turtle, Tower, Your Name, Operation Avalanche, Edge of 17, and many more. Okay, you're right. 2016 was a pretty good year for film. You've made your point. I relent. Oh, the vampire tropes I meant are things such as the lighting. Walken is this spectral presence feeding off the addicts he preys upon. Moonlit scenes. I'll watch it again. There are more. That's actually, yeah, that's not bad. I didn't think of him, yeah. I didn't think of the character in that way. That's interesting. To me, I thought of it as a story about redemption. You know, because the main thrust of the story, right, is that he's trying to build like a hospital or something like that. He's kind of trying to atone for all of his past sins. So he gets back like into the drug business and the crime business to get together this money to do this good thing, to try and make up for all of it, to save his soul, essentially. So I looked at it as more sort of like Bad Lieutenant, as a story of a sinner's redemption, or a sinner's attempt at redemption. That was kind of the way I interpreted it. I tend to look at Ferrara's films like in a really Catholic way like that, sort of like Scorsese. It seems to be something that is very much a part of who they are. I finally made one of these things. Hey, welcome! Good to see you. Media Zissix. Glad you could be here. Vincent Gallo saw a great film with him years ago called Palookaville, about a bungled heist. Don't think he directed it, though. No, he did not direct that one. I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. Yeah, that's another one I want to check out. King of Comedy is one of my favorite films. I can practically quote the whole fucking thing. I've only seen it once. A while ago. I need to rewatch it. My brother just got, like, what is it, the 30th anniversary edition Blu-ray? So I'll need to rewatch it. It's been so long since I've seen it. Why not approach some radio stations for a slot for film criticism? Maybe. I don't know. I tried to send in a resume to my local newspaper saying, like, hey, I could be a film critic. I've been to film school. I have some experience, but I never heard back from them. So I gave it a half-hearted attempt. But yeah, it never led to anything. Maybe there'll be more opportunities for me in Portland. I'm going to move there later this year, so hopefully I find something that I really enjoy there. I'll probably just end up working at another grocery store, but I could make an attempt. Rob Ager is awesome. He made his own feature film as well. Wow. Yeah, I'll have to look into him. I'd never heard of him before. He has 2 channels, Rob Ager and Collative Learning. King of Comedy, sleeve and disc. All right. Being there. Think about the soundtrack. Funk version of Zarathustra and the scene with Chauncey Gardner. Yeah, I know that's not his real name. Watching the moon landing footage. I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced. I read The Hospital in King of New York as more of a cynical ploy to gain respectability. He becomes involved with it. Is it like the mayor's assistant or something? Long time since I saw it. I didn't read it that way. That's interesting. That it's just kind of a way of providing more of a front so that he can continue preying upon the helpless. That's an interesting way to read the movie. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. UK Blu-ray of King of Comedy, covered in 6 horrible ratings logos. You hate those ratings logos, don't you? I guess I can understand. I also, I was going through the Showtime app, checking out what was on there. I actually rewatched Spring Breakers. That was the second time I've seen it. Even better the second time. That's a movie, yeah, it's a hell of an experience. There are lots of things I could criticize in it, but there are also just a lot of things I love about it as well. It's a weird contradiction of a movie. Portland is a great city for comics, apparently. Lots of great cartoonists live there. I know, I don't know if he still lives there, but I know Todd Haynes recently moved to Portland. He's one of my favorite directors. If I could run into him at Whole Foods or something, that'd be great. But yeah, I rewatched Spring Breakers. I was thinking about that one. That is such an interesting film. It's like it's like male gaze the movie. It's all about just staring at breasts and leering at nubile young female bodies, but at the same time, it's also about empowering girls in a weird way. There's this bizarre contradiction at the heart of the movie, that it's essentially an exploitation film, but it's also kind of like this feminist empowerment film as well. You know, in that the 4 main girls, they aren't victims in the movie. They never really become victims. They kind of there's this really interesting power play that runs through the whole movie. You know, it seems like they're going to be exploited at first, that they're going to be taken advantage of by the James Franco character. There's this really sinister tone that develops throughout the movie and the soundtrack, and the sound design. There's this really ominous feel that is constantly approaching. And then Franco gets there, and like initially, the way it's played is like you think he's gonna take advantage of these girls. He's gonna pull them into something awful. They're gonna become these victims of circumstance that are gonna get in way over their heads and not be able to handle it. But then there's that key scene where the whole power dynamic shifts, and they become the dominant ones. You know, they point the guns in Franco's face, and they just say to him flat out, like, you think we need you? You think you're going to control us? You think you're going to make objects of us? No way. We don't need you. We're fine on our own. And then it's not hard to read the symbolism, like when he starts filleting the gun barrels, he gives himself over to their dominance and their power, and it becomes a film about female dominance and feminine power. It's bizarre, in a movie that is where like half of the time it's just close-ups of breasts. It's such a weird contradiction happening in that film. But I guess that's Harmony Korine. He's one that simultaneously celebrates surface and shallowness, but at the same time tries to explore things underneath, and it is always subverting things, subverting convention. It's an interesting movie, and just as a visceral experience through sound and image, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's such an assaulting movie of color and music, and I think Korine described it as a liquid narrative. It's like a pure energy. It's really unlike any other movie out there. Just the whole way it's put together, and the editing too. It never stops. I'm still hugely on the fence about Harmony Korine. I can understand. Yeah, he's another one of those ones. People either really dislike him or they really love him. I'm somebody who really loves him, but I also understand the criticisms he receives. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, after I watched Spring Breakers and was just sort of awash in that movie, losing myself in it, I watched another film. I think it was a horror movie. It was called The Ruins. I'd kind of heard that it was like this underrated horror film. Didn't really care for it so much. It was okay. Not the worst like horror film I've seen. Not bad. But really watching it after Spring Breakers, which is just this pure visceral experience, it was like going back to a movie that was shot in a conventional way, just with like a static shots and like over the shoulder stuff, doing coverage in a standard way, neutral color temperatures, stuff like that. It's like, God, this is so boring. This is such a flat, dull movie visually, and it's not a poorly shot movie. It's just, it felt so conventional and standard and dull after this incredible visual piece that Spring Breakers was. It's like any movie you watch after that, you sort of get spoiled. It's just like, God, this is so dull, so flat. There are no colors. There's no, there's no like texture or quality to the image. Korine kind of spoils you. I just thought that was funny though. I think, Gaspar Noé is the same way. You try watching Enter the Void, and then just watch like, trying to think of somebody who's really just like a bog standard kind of director. I don't know. I don't pay attention to those kinds of filmmakers very often. But you just go to anything conventional after like Gaspar Noé or Harmony Korine. It seems so dull. The Swiss Army Man Blu-ray has an option to play the film without the score. The score is one of the essential components, though. That'd be weird. They actually, the two characters actually sing the score most of the time, which I thought was a very funny idea. I'd never really seen that before. But yeah, I thought Spring Breakers held up. I thought it was even more interesting the second time. I was even more, I guess, taken aback by how shameless it was, and even more impressed by how complex it was. Like I said, it's just a contradiction of a film. I dig what you're saying about Spring Breakers' visual elements. I think it represents a real progression for Corinne directorially. Who was the DP? I was just gonna fucking say, I think Spring Breakers... I was just gonna say, I think Spring Breakers is possibly influenced by Enter the Void visually. Makes sense. I know Corinne is a big Gaspar Noé fan. They did like this documentary together. I forget what it's called, but it's Harmony Korine showing Gaspar Noé around his hometown in, where was it, Kentucky? No, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. It's it's Korine showing Gaspar Noé around Tennessee, showing him all the landmarks and places that he grew up around. It's a really funny video. It's like 45 minutes long, I think. You can find it on YouTube, but it's really good. I'd recommend it. But yeah, DP on Spring Breakers was Benoit Debie. He also shot Gaspar Noé's Love. I think he shot all of Noé's films. Maybe not. I don't think he shot Enter the Void. But he did shoot Love. He's a great DP. I love his work. They've collaborated? Interesting. Thanks for that, Henry. I don't know if you'd call it a collaboration. They're more like the subjects of the documentary. But it's really funny watching them hang out. Yeah, it's a totally irreverent thing. You know, they don't really talk about filmmaking from what I recall. They just kind of like, it's just about them hanging out and just having a good time together. Emir Kusturica is the best Serbian director alive today. But a lot of the humor is lost in translation. It's pretty culturally specific. So I'm not sure how much a foreigner can enjoy it. I understand that. Sorry, I meant who was the DP on Spring Breakers? Benoit Debie. He shot Spring Breakers and Gaspar Noé's Love. He's worked with both of them. He's a great DP. I wish I could remember the other stuff he's shot. He shot a lot of really great, beautiful movies. But yeah, his work on Spring Breakers and Love is pretty extraordinary. But yeah, about Emir Kusturica and like the humor that's lost in translation. I actually just saw a movie that kind of fits into that category. I've been revisiting a lot of Jean-Pierre Jeunet's films, who I think is great, an amazing director. He's one of my favorites. He's a former animator, and he's done films like Delicatessen and City of Lost Children, which he collaborated with the graphic novelist Mark Caro in directing those. Those are great movies, and then he became a solo director and made stuff like Amelie, Micmacs, A Very Long Engagement, all great films. He just did one recently called The Young and Prodigious T.S. Spivet, which was his first 3D movie, which was really underrated and underseen. I thought it was a really fantastic, like, children's adventure story. But I was just rewatching. I rewatched City of Lost Children, which is incredible, a masterpiece, and I rewatched Micmacs, which is another just creative, imaginative, visual, enchanting masterpiece. I love his work. And yeah, because he's a former animator, he's one of those ones like Terry Gilliam, or Tim Burton. His movies are just like, they're like cartoons brought to life. They're so heightened and stylized and visual, and there's such a specific attention to detail in every frame. You could watch his movies endlessly, over and over again, constantly discover something new. Micmacs is exactly like that. I watched it like twice in a row. And both times, I saw new things in it. I never get tired of his films. I love them so much. But the reason I bring him up is that Micmacs is done in French. He's done a few films in English, like a couple. He directed Alien Resurrection, which is not his finest achievement. But Micmacs was done in French, And there's a lot of very specific French humor, which was sort of lost on me as an American. I didn't really understand it so much until I listened to the commentary, his audio commentary, where he talks about a lot of like the French wordplay in the movie and a lot of specific like French cultural jokes and references. And with that context, I was able to understand a lot more. But I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that, unless you're a native French speaker, you're just not going to understand. You know, like the wordplay and things like that. You just have to understand the language inherently to get a lot of that. But even with that barrier, those things lost in translation, his movies are so visual and so wonderful just to look at that it doesn't really matter so much to me. There's still plenty I can enjoy, even with the language barrier. I still think it's a wonderful, enchanting, magical movie. And I think it helps, you know, the fact that he used to be an animator. He's able to create these characters and these worlds that are like comic books or cartoons brought to life. So they're told with broad strokes. You know, each character has very specific elements. I mean, their costume, their look, their attitude, their body language, everything is so specific and heightened and exaggerated that even with the language barrier, everything is so clearly communicated that it really crosses that boundary regardless. So yeah, I love his work for that reason. Do you understand why the first print of Apocalypse Now on DVD was intentionally cropped, even in the widescreen releases? Only the Blu-ray shows the complete 2.35 aspect ratio. That was because it was released in the days before widescreen HD TVs. Coppola didn't like the picture being so small. He didn't like the giant black bars on the top and bottom of the screen. So he blew the image up a little bit to open up the aspect ratio. Or he didn't open it up, because I don't think it was shot open matte. But he zoomed in on the image a little bit so that it could fill the screens a bit more. But yeah, now that we have HD TVs, he didn't really have to worry about that. So yeah, the Blu-ray was the first time the full original aspect ratio was presented. Which, thank God for that. I hate when aspect ratios are messed with and all kinds of stuff like that. That's why I love Criterion, because they don't screw with any of it. They give you the original movie. Have you ever seen any of Mark Caro's films? I dig his comics a lot. His films are a bit meh. Micmacs is really good. I'd forgotten about that one. Great characters. Yeah, I love it so much. It's such a good movie. I have not seen any of Mark Caro's solo work, though, and I haven't read any of his comics, actually. But the stuff he did with Genet, I think, is phenomenal. I love Delicatessen, and yeah, rewatching City of Lost Children is just wow. You could pause any frame of that movie and just dissect everything that's going on, all the attention to details. I remember I listened to the commentary on that one too, and Genet was talking about how Caro was really responsible for all those little details. You know, he'd put like graffiti on a wall, he'd put something here or there. He was saying every time they set up a shot, because Genet was really the director, you know, he was setting up the camera moves and talking to the actors. Genet was really responsible for the design of the movie, production design, and he helped with lighting a lot. And it took so long to, you know, set up a shot that Mark Caro would get bored. And so while Genet was talking with the DP and the actors and everybody, he'd just be like looking at the frame and thinking like, what else can I add? And he'd run over to the corner here and he'd add a little detail here. And then he'd see some space up here and he'd run over there, he'd add a little detail there. And so every single shot, every single frame of that movie is just jam-packed with all of this stuff. Because Caro was there just adding it to every single image. Which, yeah, you can just watch that movie over and over and over again and discover something new. I love movies like that, though. That's why I love Terry Gilliam's movies, you know? Those movies that just don't get old. That constantly... The visual language is so complicated that you're constantly learning something new from it. I'm a huge fan of mob movies. In your opinion, has there been a mob movie that has been released after Goodfellas that you believe surpasses it in greatness? Whew, that's a tough question. I did just watch Animal Kingdom, the Australian crime movie. It got turned into a TV series. I haven't seen the TV series, but I saw the original movie, which was good. I'd heard, a lot of people's... And they had, a lot of critical quotes on the DVD cover saying, it's the Australian Goodfellas. It's amazing. It's really good, but I don't know that I would compare it to Goodfellas. Yeah, there have been a lot of really good crime movies released, but I don't know that any of them match Goodfellas. Casino, just got to go to Scorsese. I'm actually somebody who thinks Casino is better than Goodfellas. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with that, but I actually do think Casino is even more ambitious, and stylistically, it's an even greater achievement than Goodfellas. That's how I feel. You could say it just repeats a lot of the same stuff that Goodfellas already did, and you'd have a point. But regardless, that doesn't matter to me so much. I think Casino is more of a refinement and more of an expansion. So I really like it for that reason. That's really interesting about Caro and Janae. I can kind of imagine him scuttling around. Yeah. I mean, watch that movie, pause any shot, and just look at it. Just pick it apart. See what is over in a corner here, because that movie was shot completely on sound stages and sets. So everything there is there purposefully, is specifically placed there. So, I mean, you can look at anything, like a cat here, a shadow there, a piece of filth here. It's all there for a reason. It was all specifically placed there. And, you can see all kinds of things happening in the background and over here on the side. It's great. I love movies like that. Stephen H. Burham, DP on The Outsiders and Rumblefish, was second unit DP on Apocalypse Now. Cool. He shot Carlito's Way and a lot for Brian De Palma. Yeah, he's a great DP. Second unit on Apocalypse Now. That's interesting. I'm always interested in discovering, who was kind of in the background on certain things. I was reading about Tim Burton earlier this week. I didn't know he used to work for Disney as an animator. I thought that was really surprising. He worked on The Fox and the Hound as an assistant animator. And, what was the other one he worked on? He worked on Tron, surprisingly enough, and The Black Cauldron. And I had no idea. I was like, wow, that's crazy. You just don't think of a young Tim Burton helping to do in-betweens on famous Disney movies. I love learning little bits of trivia like that. Ooh, not really. Movies that have surpassed Goodfellas. Donnie Brasco is very good, but not on that level. I'm actually not a very big fan of Donnie Brasco. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a really poor attempt at a Scorsese imitation. That's just me. I've talked to a lot of people that love that movie. But yeah, I just did not care for it very much. Back in 95, I saw Heat and Casino in a double bill in the cinema. You must have been there all day, because those are two very long movies. Heat is great. Yeah, Heat is really good. If anything compares to Goodfellas, it might be Heat. But Michael Mann's style is very different from Scorsese's. So it would kind of depend on which style you prefer. I could see somebody thinking Heat is better than Goodfellas, but I think it would depend on the kind of filmmaking that you really like. Because Scorsese is very operatic, he's very subjective, he moves his camera a lot, he's really all about immersing you in the feeling of being with these characters through these experiences. Whereas Heat is more analytical. It's a bit colder, it's a bit less emotional, it's more focused just on detail, on realism. How would something like this actually happen? How would the criminals actually go about committing these robberies and these crimes? How would the police actually go about catching these guys? And also exploring the character dynamics, the respect that builds, between the Pacino character and the De Niro character, the kinship that they feel. It's a masterpiece in its own way, and Goodfellas is a masterpiece in its own separate way. It's two very different styles. So, yeah, I guess it would depend on which style you prefer, the more realistic, like analytical style, or the more subjective, emotional style of Scorsese. Would Pulp Fiction count as a mob movie? I don't know. I think Pulp Fiction is more of a comedy than anything else. Maybe. I'm not sure. Tarantino's kind of his own genre. Heat is the coolest film of all time. David Fincher did the matte paintings for Raiders of the Lost Ark? I didn't know that. I thought he started in music videos. To me, Casino is like a loose sequel to Goodfellas. A sequel. Interesting. It's definitely a spiritual successor. Hey friends, I'm late. Welcome, Jack. Glad you could make it. Speaking of directorial collaborations, have you heard that Donald Cammell shot the interior scenes of Performance and Nick Rogue the exteriors? I actually did know that about Tim Burton. I did not know that about Performance. I read a book about Nicholas Rogue. I didn't know they split it up like that, of like interior and exterior. I thought the way they did it was, what I read in this Nicholas Rogue book, I think it's called, it's Fragile Geometry. It's a book about Nick Rogue. What I read was that Nicholas Rogue, because he used to be a cinematographer, because before he became a director, what I heard is that basically he was the one shooting the movie, like deciding where the camera was going to go, deciding on the lighting and the movement and everything, and the editing. And Cammell was the one who was really working with the actors and breaking down the characters and the story and really in control of the script and the dialogue. That's the way I heard they split up the duties. That's a great movie, though. I love Performance. Nick Rogue's another really underrated director. I love his work. Performance, I think, is great. Man Who Fell to Earth is my favorite of his. I think that's a masterpiece. And he's done a lot of really interesting, weirder ones, too, like the one he did about Albert Einstein and Marilyn Monroe. Insignificance. Yeah, that Criterion Collection released that on Blu-ray. That's a great one. And he did one for George Harrison's Handmade Films company, too. It was one of the last films that Handmade Films ever produced before the company collapsed. It was called Track 29. It starred Gary Oldman and Christopher Lloyd and Teresa Russell. It was really good. I liked it. It's very strange, very bizarre, but then again, most Nicholas Rogue films are very strange and very bizarre. He's a great director. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit. I think his reputation is starting to build in recent years, but I don't hear him mentioned enough as one of the great filmmakers. Did I already miss the Swiss Army Man talk? Yeah, we already did talk about that one. Sorry. I watched the video 10 Amazing Hidden Details in Tarantino Films on Screen Rant's channel. I didn't know Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction and Mr. Blonde from Reservoir Dogs are brothers. I think I had heard that. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Jack beat me to it. Didn't Tarantino want to make a movie specifically about them being brothers? Yeah, I think so. He did. It was gonna be called the Vega Brothers, I think. It never happened. And I think now, the actors have aged so much he can no longer really do it. But yeah, I did hear about that. Oh, I think the French film A Prophet is the best post-90s organized crime movie. that one is at the same time one of the very best prison movies I've seen. Yeah, that's an underrated one, an underseen one. A Prophet is really good. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that one. Yeah, I think that has also the best, you tend to see every prison movie, has a scene where somebody gets killed, you see somebody get shanked or something like that. Every prison movie has that scene, but I think A Prophet has the best version of that scene that I've ever seen, of like showing how brutal doing something like that would be and how difficult it would be. But yeah, that is a tough scene. Spares no detail. But yeah, that's the best version of that scene that I've ever seen. Really makes you feel it. Yeah, that's a good movie. Have you seen the documentary Donald Camel, The Ultimate Performance? Apparently his parents hung out with Aleister Crowley, and one of his first memories was sitting on his knee. Love those Rogue films too. I have not seen the documentary. I'd love to learn more about Donald Camel. I listened to an interview, I think it would be the director of that documentary, Kevin MacDonald. I'm not sure if that's the right one, but I know Kevin MacDonald did do a documentary on Donald Camel, and he did a Mark Maron interview on the WTF podcast, and he talked about that one. And Maron, of course, is somebody who is very interested in Donald Camel, and so asked him a lot of questions, about the research and the stuff in that documentary. It's a lot of really crazy stuff, like Camel's suicide was just kind of fascinating to me, that he was somebody, he did a lot of drugs, he was all about mind and consciousness expansion, and so he actually did research on the human brain, and he found there was a specific part of the brain that if he shot himself in that area of the brain, it would release this chemical that would get him super high, and so that's what he did, apparently. I remember, it's the Kevin MacDonald one. Okay, thank you. But yeah, I remember MacDonald talking about that. It's just like, wow, I can't believe someone would actually do that. It's fascinating, though. He was quite an interesting individual. I remember Keith Richards talked about him, too, in his book, Life. I read that one a little while ago, and Keith Richards was dating Anita Pallenberg, one of the female leads in that movie. He was dating her at the time and visited the set. He did not like Donald Camel. Did not have nice things to say about him at all. Yeah, called him basically an untalented hack. He said the only reason that movie was good was because of Nick Rogue. He did not like Donald Camel at all. Prophet is fantastic. Oh, all of the events, though, happen in my favorite TV program, Oz. Just saying. Okay. Yeah, hopefully gonna watch, or start watching Oz fairly soon. Who else in your mind could have portrayed James Cole in 12 Monkeys? Hopefully you mean the movie, because I haven't seen the show. I don't know. That's a tough question. I think Bruce Willis did a great job. Bruce Willis is not somebody I always like in movies, but when he's in the right role with the right director, he's pretty damn good. 12 Monkeys, I think, is one of his best. He's so not Bruce Willis in that movie. He's so vulnerable, and he's so, I guess, just he's not really the action hero, he's not really the decisive action hero who knows exactly what to do in that movie. That's what I love about it, is that he's so confused. He so lacks confidence. He's so vulnerable in his performance in that movie. That's what I really love about it. And I think it's great seeing Bruce Willis do that. John McClane, the tough, decisive action hero, being this guy that really has no idea who he is, where he is, what he's doing. I love that ambiguity, and I think specifically Terry Gilliam cast Bruce Willis to get that feeling. Here's the action hero who doesn't know what to do, who's confused, who's ambiguous. I really love that it plays around with that. So I don't know. I don't know if you could get anyone else, or if you did get someone else, it would totally change the feel of the movie. And I really like 12 Monkeys, so I wouldn't want to mess with that too much. Is that about the French Moroccan gangster? Starts off in prison, The Prophet. If it's the one I'm thinking of, that is a fucking great film. Yeah, The Vicious Shanking, I think it is. Yes, yeah. That is the movie, The Prophet, yeah. That is a scene that really stuck in my head. Man. Normally that scene is just kind of like, boom, it's done, over. You don't really linger on it too much. But yeah, the director of that one, I think his name is Jacques Ariod, something like that. I know I'm butchering the pronunciation, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, the way he focused on that scene and really tried to accentuate the violence and emphasize its brutality was really well done. Oh, talking about Donald Campbell. He knew where to shoot himself, and he was conscious for 5 or 10 minutes after he shot himself, holding conversations and everything. My God. I'll have to see that documentary. There's a book about him, too. I forget what the book is called, but yeah, I'd really love to learn more about Campbell. Have you seen Edgar Wright's The World's End? Simon Pegg says, "What the fuck does WTF mean?" I have seen World's End. It's not bad. It's definitely like all of the Simon Pegg, Edgar Wright collaborations. It's very creative. It's very layered with detail. It's a very fun homage to a classic genre, done with a lot of love and care, and inventiveness and originality. But of the trilogy that they did, the three, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and World's End, I think that one was the weakest. It's not as good, it's not as fun as Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead, but still good. Still a fun one. Forgot about that. I read the Keith Richards book too. Yeah, that was something I remembered. Brad Pitt was great in 12 Monkeys too. Yeah, Brad Pitt. You want to talk about overacting? That is perhaps the most overacted performance in any movie. But yeah, that's what's so good about it. That's what makes him so creepy. You can't tell if he's just trying to be insane, because that's the character, or yeah, if it's just Brad Pitt just going crazy. Did you see The Hamster Factor, the 12 Monkeys documentary? I was at a Q&A with the directors. Wow. I think the directors that did The Hamster Factor, they also did Lost in La Mancha, the documentary about Gilliam's unmade Don Quixote movie. Or at least at the time unmade. He is apparently currently shooting Don Quixote, which I'm very excited for. I'm praying that nothing goes wrong with it this time. If he could finally make Don Quixote, that would be incredible. I really hope it happens. But yeah, The Hamster Factor, that's great. That's one of the best behind the scenes documentaries you can see, because it's honest. It's not just talking heads talking about saying all the standard bits and snippets. Oh yeah, the script was amazing. I wanted to work with the director, the cast. We had so much fun. It actually gets into the nitty-gritty, the actual day-to-day process, and the difficulties that one deals with working on a film, especially Terry Gilliam. But yeah, it's great. You even see him when Gilliam loses it with the producers and locks himself in his trailer for 2 hours. You see all of that, all the drama, all of the tense, difficult moments, and the battle of creating a feature film. Yeah, it's a great one. Anybody who wants to get a sense of what filmmaking is really like, you should watch The Hamster Factor. Rust and Bone was a great follow-up to A Prophet. That's a modern classic in my mind. I haven't seen that one. I haven't seen any of that director's other films. I'll have to check them out. I've been hearing a lot of really good stuff about his latest one, which I think was called Deepan, something like that. It won the Palme d'Or I think not the most recent Cannes Film Festival, but I think the previous one, it won the Palme d'Or. And yeah, it's coming out on Blu-ray, courtesy of the Criterion Collection. So it's one I want to check out. Oh, and somebody mentioned it in the very next comment. I haven't seen A Prophet, but I really loved Deepan. Yeah, okay. Once again, I'm behind everyone else. The World's End slapped a big fat smile on my face for 2 hours. Least good of the three. I agree, though. Hey, if you enjoy a movie, if something, anything brings you joy, then hey, great. Embrace it. Don't be ashamed of it. You know? I guess that's the other thing, talking about vulnerability. I guess, yeah, maybe even just with certain films, yeah, people are afraid to... Some people, not everyone, but yeah, I get a sense that there's a reluctance now of, like, admitting that you liked a certain movie or that you really love this movie because, yeah, it goes back to the vulnerability. You kind of make yourself vulnerable when you admit love for something. And, yeah, I mean, I don't care what I say on here, what anyone else says. I mean, yeah, if you love something, embrace it. I just found this Guillermo del Toro thing. I'm going to risk collapsing the stream for a second to bring up this list I found on Letterboxd, which I've been using a lot lately. How's the stream holding up? Looks okay so far. Oh boy. Having some trouble. I'm going to see if I can bring this list up because it has some Guillermo del Toro comments on it that he posted on Twitter that I just thought were so good and that I really wanted to share. Oh shit. Computer's going crazy. It is heating up. Terry Gilliam said he loved Bruce Willis's nose. That was part of his casting choice. Gilliam has some kind of obsession with noses, because I just watched an interview with him recently where he talked about Matt Damon's nose in The Brothers Grimm, how he wanted to put like a prosthetic nose on Matt Damon. And the producers of the film said, like, no, you're not going to screw with Matt Damon's face. He's going to bring us like $50 million at least. You give him a weird nose, we're going to lose that money. So he had to relent on that. He was saying it was one of his regrets of his career is that he didn't stick by his guns. Yeah, it's funny how often noses come up with Gilliam. Ah, shit. The site's not coming up. Yeah, I don't think I can open another tab while I've got the stream going. Damn it, I really wanted to share some of these quotes. I love them so much. Shit. Okay. I'm going to try one more time. Looks like the stream is holding. I'm going to try one more time to get it brought up. Easy now. Got it. Okay. Yeah, it's this list that I liked on Letterboxd, the site. It's Guillermo del Toro's Twitter film recommendations. And it lists a bunch of quotes, a bunch of his tweets that I just thought were great. That these articulate things that I feel about movies and cinema that I've never been able to really find words for. But God, I love Del Toro so much. He's so articulate. He's so eloquent. Yeah, I have to read all of these. Lost films only stay lost if no one looks for them. Be curious, be peculiar. What you watch is what you are. Your taste in film is a quest. You have a palate and you must refine it to match your essence. Never settle and never follow blindly. Film is a religious call. No one is right or wrong. During the very same Mass, some look at the clock, while others find their Damascus road. Wittgenstein said, "The limits of your language are the limits of your world. The same is true of your visual language. Be curious. Want more." Favorite movies don't have to be perfect movies. Like in any relationship, love is what makes them stick around. 2 more here. Great films, like diamonds, sometimes require mining. Some are hard work, but their yield is precious. These films seldom get us at first viewing, but when repeated, they become permanent loves. And this last one is my favorite. If we don't defend what we love, if we let it fade, then our lives lose meaning. We must declare ourselves of what we are, what we love. I loved those quotes so much. That's the kind of shit that I feel in my core, but I've never really had the words for. Yeah, I cherish Del Toro as a mind, as a presence, and as an artist. All right, let's see what I missed here on the chat while I went off on that digression. Had to share that with everyone, though. I reacted very strongly reading those quotes. Question for everyone. Sexiest movie of all time? I'm up for something hot tonight. Spring Breakers is pretty sexy. Pretty shamelessly sexy, as I talked about earlier. But, yeah, a sexy movie. Yeah, I don't know. Can't think of... I'm trying to think of sexy movies. Nothing really comes to mind immediately. What did you think of the Zero Theorem? I thought it was good, but it was very much style, which wasn't backed up by a great deal of substance, despite its lofty philosophical ambitions. I don't think Zero Theorem was bad. I thought it had a lot of interesting ideas behind it, but yeah, it was one of Gilliam's weaker efforts, I thought. Disappointed by Waltz's performance, too, if I'm honest. I thought Christoph Waltz was good. And I thought, it had a lot of Gilliam's trademark strengths on display. The production design, the costume design, the cinematography, just visually the film was great. But yeah, story-wise, it was a little shaky. It was a little uneven. Yeah, it's definitely a movie with a lot of flaws, a lot of problems. But I did enjoy it. It's not one that, I'm too eager to revisit often. Not one of my favorites, but I thought it had some interesting stuff. If anything, it was different. It took a lot of chances. And I always respect a film that's willing to take a lot of chances. That's funny. Thanks to a letterbox list, I just discovered Traumstadt from 1973, directed by Johannes Schaff, and it's on YouTube. Have you seen it? Just want to know if it's worth watching. I've not. I do not know what that film is. I apologize. Gilliam is not for everyone, but I love him and his work. I do too. Gilliam's one of my favorites. He's one of those ones that, like I was talking about Genet. Genet does the same thing, although he's very influenced by Terry Gilliam, so Gilliam was really the one that did it first. But he creates worlds in all of his movies. Not a lot of directors can really do that. Through design, through cinematography, through a very specific and very obsessive attention to detail, he can create these bizarre other universes, other worlds, and immerse you in them. And I really love that about his films, even his weaker films, like Tideland, I thought was another kind of weaker movie of his. But it is one that really immerses you in that world of that little girl's imagination. It's kind of an unpleasant film that goes to a lot of really strange, off-putting places, but it does immerse you. And I love that about his work. So yeah, even in his weaker movies, there's still so much for me to appreciate in them. Like Zero Theorem does create a world, and I enjoyed that. But yeah, it's just story-wise, structure-wise, yeah, there were a lot of problems there. A lot of tonal shifts that maybe didn't really work so much, and yeah, the story maybe just didn't carry all the way through. Forgot to say, Henry, you've inspired me to start my own channel doing reviews and talking about weird and unorthodox, avant-garde, arty, whatever you want to call them, comics. So thanks for that. Well, I'll have to check out your channel. Yeah, I'll check out some of your videos, see if there's something I can share on my Facebook page or something. But yeah, awesome. Great. I'm so glad you're creating stuff. That's great to hear. Awesome quotes. I'll have to look them up again later. Thanks for sharing. Yes. I loved those quotes. Oh, talking about sexy movies. Shame should put you in the mood. Yeah. I mean, Michael Fassbender, he's always nice to look at, even, yeah, in a movie as devastating as Shame. First Wachowski's film is pretty sexy. Bound? Yeah, that is a sexy one. Trying to think. Oh, Weekend. That's a pretty sexy movie. Jeez. I wonder if I can come up with another one. Maybe Gaspar Noé's Love. That's a pretty sexy one. I like the way Lynch's Wild at Heart was shot. I like the way the sex scenes were filmed. Not necessarily the sexiest film, but worth another watch. I do want to go back to a lot of Lynch's stuff. There have been a lot of Lynch movies that I didn't like at the time that I watched them. Wild at Heart was one of them. Lost Highway was another. But I guess just going back to, or watching the new Twin Peaks stuff, it's made me really want to go back and give them another shot. I dislike the term style over substance. Film for me is about the experience rather than story, which can be achieved through style. I agree with that, you know. I think a lot of people tend to get obsessed with details of the story, you know, like making sure everything in the film is logical, that all of the information is consistent with itself. And I think that's kind of wasted energy. I just disagree in the way film should be experienced and analyzed. To me, a film's quality is not determined by its story. A film's quality is determined by how it tells that story. So, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of movies that if you analyze them, if you pick them apart, yeah, there are plot holes, there are things that don't work. To me, that's not important. It's how the story is told, you know, to make you forget about those plot holes, to make you forget about those inconsistencies. How is the story being told? And what effect does that have on you as the audience member? You know, I'm not so concerned with story itself and logical progression of events and making sure, you know, that everything's airtight and everything makes sense. To me, it's all about how is it being told? How are you reaching emotions? How are you conveying things visually? That's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm obsessed with. That's why I watch movies. And yeah, I guess that tends to be dismissed as style over substance. I think style is substance. Going back to Guillermo del Toro again, he said there are some films that are eye candy, you know, that are just pure surface and have nothing going on underneath. And eye candy is shallow. It's nice to watch every now and again. It's a sweet treat. But there are other films that are really about style, like Guillermo del Toro's films, that he calls eye protein. It's nice, it's tasty, it's great to look at, but it also has some nutritional content as well. It has real ideas behind it. It has real things that you can savor. And I think, yeah, a lot of directors like Terry Gilliam, like Del Toro, a lot of others, they do tend to get that dismissal, style over substance. Like their films are just eye candy. I agree very much with Del Toro. They're eye protein. There's real stuff there to devour. Oh. Yeah, Vicky Cristina Barcelona. That's a pretty sexy one. 9.5 weeks. I didn't really like 9.5 weeks. Blue is the warmest color? Yes. Are you excited for Spring Breakers 2? I don't know. Harmony Korine's not involved, and he doesn't seem too happy that it's being made. But, try to remain open-minded. We'll see. I think what was essential to making the first Spring Breakers work was Harmony Korine's personality, his subversiveness, his particular way of viewing things and telling a story. So I don't know. I feel like the second one will maybe just see the surface and nothing underneath that. But, I don't want to judge it before I've seen it. The Handmaiden is sexy if you're into feudal Japan. Oh yeah, Y Tu Mamá Tambien. Yeah, that's a very sexy movie. Good suggestion. Oh, finally saw Upstream Color after watching your Shane Carruth videos, and now I'm watching for the Modern Ocean updates like a hawk. Thank you for the recommendation. You're welcome. Glad I could turn you on to a great movie. Yeah, Modern Ocean. I really hope that still happens. Last update was not looking too good. The movie's been delayed, possibly canceled. I hope not. But yeah, keep your fingers crossed. Something from Shane Carruth. He did have the cameo in Swiss Army Man, so that's something. It was really cool to see him pop up in that. But yeah, I hope he gets to direct again soon. Oh, Volsticks. I've already done a couple of reviews, but I'm learning my way around the editing software and such. Hoping I can get something uploaded by this time next week. Well, cool. You have to, when you have some stuff updated, you have to post a link. Or if you have some videos up already, share a link. We'll try to check it out. Ooh. Upstream Color is one of my absolute favorites. I liked Primer, but Upstream Color had the emotional heart I felt Primer lacked. Yeah, that's a good point. Sexy movies, anything by Tinto Brass. Yeah, Tinto Brass, he loved the posterior. His films, were all about just how much he loved asses. Tinto Brass. I just noticed that. Oh, try watching Ken Park. It's written by Harmony 2, and the three-way at the end is great. Yeah, there's something... Okay, yeah, the ending scene, is a joyous sexual experience. But yeah, most of the sexuality in that movie is really sad and really tragic and disturbing. So most of the movie is really the opposite of sexy. But yeah, at the end, it's about the joy of sexuality. There's one pleasant instance of sexuality in that movie. But yeah, the rest of it is really harsh. For a director who didn't make another film for over a decade after he made his first film, he made a goddamn masterpiece. That he did. I always think about that. Sometimes. That's an oxymoron. I always think about that sometimes, God. But I think about that sometimes of directors, how there are gaps sometimes of like half a decade or more between movies. And I wonder about that. Like, do you lose something in that intermittent period? I remember reading an interview with Terry Gilliam once where he talked about that, of how he co-directed the Monty Python movies, and then he went off and he did his own movie by himself called Jabberwocky, and then he didn't direct another solo film for 2 or 3 years afterwards, which doesn't sound like a lot. But I remember reading an interview with him where he was talking about how when he went into Time Bandits, he literally hadn't directed anything for 2 straight years. And he was saying he was really worried going into Time Bandits, like, am I going to remember everything? Am I still going to have the skills that I developed on the other stuff? He was worried that, some of the tools that he'd honed had dulled in that time. And so, I think about that sometimes, that, You read about some directors that go, yeah, for 6 years, 10 years, 20 years without directing anything. Like, how do you keep those skills sharp? Is it just an instinctual thing, or is it something you develop? I think maybe it's a combination. But yeah, I guess really what it comes down to probably is just remembering those essential lessons that you've learned on your previous work, and just preparation. Preparation, preparation, preparation. As Ben Kingsley said in Sexy Beast. Preparation, preparation, preparation. Just be ready. Henry, you were a film student. I know it's not an academically fashionable idea in these days of postmodernism, but I take it you're familiar with the idea of medium specificity. Whoa, my stomach's making noises, sorry. This talk of style over substance made me think of it, and the familiarities between comics and films in some cases. I am not familiar with the idea of medium specificity. Yeah, I've not heard of that. So you might have to educate me. But yeah, I don't know too much about it. I know nothing about it. I've never heard of it. I'm glad to hear that you love Children Who Chase Lost Voices. Yeah, that was a great movie. Had a real Studio Ghibli feel to it. Which I was reading some reviews. A lot of people took that as a negative. You know, saying, oh, it's just a Studio Ghibli ripoff. It's just a pale imitation of Studio Ghibli. To me, there are worse things to try and imitate than Studio Ghibli. I thought it did a great job. It had a great story. It had great characters, beautiful animation, an incredible world, a really wonderful theme that it examined of trying to, approach loss and, being able to deal with the trauma of losing a loved one. That's a great theme, and the way it approached it and the metaphors that it used to approach that theme were great. I thought it was a terrific movie. And I mean, they say if you're going to steal, you steal from the best. If you're doing an anime movie, who else are you going to steal from other than Studio Ghibli? But yeah, I also felt the film had its own identity as well. I really want to see, I was reading about that director too. I really want to see more of his stuff. He's really becoming a huge figure in the world of anime right now. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name, but he just directed Your Name, which from what I understand is the most successful anime film ever made. So pretty groundbreaking. Because anime movies don't tend to do that well outside of Japan, with the exception of Hayao Miyazaki. But yeah, that's a pretty big thing. So yeah, I want to check that one out, and his other stuff. He did one called 5 centimeters per second that I heard was really good. So yeah, I really want to see more of his stuff, because Children Who Chase Lost Voices was beautiful. I cried several times. Wild Things. Oh, is a sexy but horrible movie. I thought Wild Things was kind of good. Yeah, I like John McNaughton. I think he's an underrated director. He did Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which is a really disturbing movie. And yeah, Wild Things. It's a comedy, you know? I think a lot of people think that movie, the way it tends to be interpreted is that it's a serious, straightforward movie. I think it's a subversive kind of comedy. I mean, Bill Murray's in it. But yeah, I kind of liked Wild Things when I watched it. Tom Hardy has charm and charisma. Does that equal sexy? I'm sure for some people, yeah. Watch Bronson. Get to see him greased up and nude. I mean, hey, what's not to love there? Henry, is Spring Breakers your favorite film or something? Asking because of the poster. It's not my favorite film, but it is one that I really like. The poster I got from a movie theater. I used to work at my local multiplex, and they gave away old movie posters, so I grabbed a few. There wasn't too much there that I was really interested in, but I'm a huge Harmony Korine fan, so it's kind of like, Spring Breakers, why not? So I grabbed it. I got a couple others that I think I have in a bin under my bed. I don't remember really what I got. I might have a Man of Steel poster. Maybe something else. I can't remember, but I grabbed a couple posters. Free posters while I was there. I mean, it's free. Why not? Yeah, but at the time I was working there, most of the stuff didn't really interest me too much. Like White House Down, I remember, was one that they had. Yeah, I wasn't too interested in that one. Oh, is Ken Park a Larry Clark film? I can't help but think he's just an old fucking lech, especially if Bijou Phillips is to be believed. Oh, God. Yeah, Larry Clark, he's controversial, and I fully understand that. Yeah, some people get really creeped out by his movies, and for obvious reasons. Oh yeah, Larry Clark likes shirtless boys in his movies. He likes shirtless everything. That he does. There is a confrontational element of sexuality to his work that understandably puts off a lot of people. Yeah, there have been a lot of criticisms of his work, both his photography and his filmmaking, and yeah, the tone of it. I really understand that, but it's something I'm able to look past. I think he's a really talented artist, but yeah, a 50, 60-year-old guy, yeah, making movies about teenage sex. Understandably, there's a creepy element there. Toshiro Mifune was, is, and always will be the man. You are correct there. Toshiro Mifune. The man. I was just thinking about Toshiro Mifune the other day. That's funny. I have a book. Yeah. The Emperor and the Wolf. Giant tome of a book. I read this a little while ago. It's about Kurosawa and Mifune, their working relationship together. It's like a dual biography. It's really good, though. It's out of print, too, and commanding high prices. I lucked out. I went to Alaska a few years ago with my family, and there was a used bookstore. I think it was in Juneau, somewhere around there. But yeah, one of the stops in Alaska, I was just looking around at a used bookstore, and I found that there, and it was only like $20, and I'd only ever seen it on like eBay for $200. So my jaw was hanging on the floor. $20 for The Emperor and the Wolf, and so I grabbed it immediately. Yeah, I'm very, very glad that I managed to get that one. And it's a great book, too. Yeah, really fascinating. It's funny, yeah, it popped into my head the other day, and I was talking with my brother about Toshiro Mifune, saying how he had like no training as an actor, didn't even want to be an actor. He showed up at Toho, the Japanese studio, Toho. He showed up there one day wanting to get a job as a camera assistant. He wanted to get into photography and the camera department. And they happened to be having a contest at the time looking for new young faces because they wanted to appeal to more young people at the Japanese box office. So they wanted to get like new, fresh faces into the movies. And somebody was there and saw him and just said, hey, you should try out for this open casting call. They're just looking for people, with charisma and interesting faces. He really didn't have much interest, was just kind of like, all right, whatever, I'll check it out. Went down there and got hired. They started putting him in movies. Kurosawa saw him, thought he was perfect for, what was the first film they did? I think it was Drunken Angel. One of those, either Drunken Angel or Stray Dog. Yeah, Kurosawa just saw him, thought he'd be the perfect choice, and yeah, a legendary collaboration was born. It's just funny, yeah, just how some things just happen by chance like that. Are you looking forward to Spring Breaker 2? Oh, / Harmony Korine's new Idris Elba rap film. I'll probably see Spring Breakers 2 at some point. I'm not too sure about that one. I think it could easily end up being awful, but it might end up being interesting. Who knows? Yeah, Irvin Welsh is writing the screenplay, so that's something. And yeah, the new Harmony Korine one. That's another one I was heartbroken on. Yeah, Harmony Korine was going to do The Trap, starring James Franco and Al Pacino and Idris Elba and Benicio del Toro. It was going to be this epic revenge film about a gangster rapper. Yeah, it was going to be set in Miami, Florida. He was saying how it was going to be like an expansion of the style that he first started exploring in Spring Breakers. He was saying like the Trap was going to take that style further, of like trying to create a movie that was like a pure energy. And like, yeah, I heard like the interviews and the stuff of him talking about what the film was going to be. I got so excited for it, but it sounds like it's been canceled. Or if not canceled, it's been delayed indefinitely, which I'm so sad to hear. But he is making a new movie. He's making The Beach Bum with Matthew McConaughey. It's apparently going to be a stoner comedy, which to me doesn't sound as exciting as The Trap, but Kareen always does something interesting and something different with each project. So a new Harmony Korine film is not a bad thing to me, but I'm really sad The Trap isn't happening, or isn't likely to happen. I hope so. I hope one day. Garden of Words is a fantastic 45-minute short from the maker of Children Who Chase Lost Voices. I'll write it down. Garden of Words. Garden of Words. Yeah, I really liked Children Who Chase Lost Voices, so I want to see more of his stuff. What are your thoughts on Nicholas Winding Refn? He's another one I'm kind of conflicted on. He's done movies that I've really liked. Like Bronson, I think, is amazing. The Pusher trilogy has some really good stuff in it. Yeah, but lately I've been really split on his stuff. Like Only God Forgives, I thought was one of the best shot movies of recent years. But it didn't really have a story. So I don't know. We were talking about style over substance. Yeah, that's kind of one. It felt more like eye candy to me than eye protein. But that's just me. I know. Yeah, he has a lot of defenders and a lot of fans. But yeah, I didn't react so positively to Only God Forgives. I liked Drive. That was pretty well done. Yeah, it had a lot of great moments in it. Who was it? Albert Brooks. Yeah, Albert Brooks was great as the villain. And then Neon Demon, I thought wasn't bad. Again, one of the most beautiful movies, beautifully shot movies of recent years. Maybe a little thin on story, but a few sequences in there that were great. Especially the ending. I think I've mentioned this several times, but the ending to the Neon Demon was great. It was a great final image there. And then other parts, yeah, were kind of like, I don't know, felt a little light on content to me. But he's an incredible talent. He's definitely very, very talented. I think it's just a matter of when he has the right screenplay. Yeah, apparently now he's remaking Maniac Cop, which is interesting. Which in my mind, that definitely gives him a chance to play with style. So we'll see. Yeah, the original Maniac Cop is it's a bizarre movie. Bruce Campbell, Robert Zadar. It's an interesting one. Have you seen The Congress by Ari Folman? I love it, but nobody knows about it, and those who do often dislike it. I know of the film. I haven't seen it, though. I don't know much about it. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, but it's the one with Robin Wright Penn, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I know of it. I think it's on Netflix. Or maybe it was at one point. I don't know if it still is, but yeah, I'll have to try and make sure I check it out. Oh, talking about this concept. What was it called again? Intrinsic or... Oh, medium specificity. Okay. It's basically the idea that each medium has its own intrinsic qualities, obviously. It was coined by Clement Greenberg, who championed Jackson Pollock, and that the best examples of a certain medium embody all the qualities which are unique to said medium. I.e., novels can do things films can't do, films can do things music can't do, comics can do things theater can't do. Like, I think Malick embodies the idea of medium specificity in film, purity of form. Don't know how that hashtag got in there. Okay, that makes sense to me. Yeah, I definitely agree with that concept. I think, yeah, each medium has its own specific strengths and weaknesses. That's why I tend to think, like, if you do a really faithful, straightforward adaptation of something in film, it's not as strong as it could be. I think the best adaptations of films tend to be ones that depart considerably from their source material. But yeah, I tend to think, not that they're bad, but like if you see a film adaptation of a stage play, it tends to feel a lot like a stage play, which I don't think the strengths of what you can do in theater translate to film. To me, films based on stage plays tend to feel very static, they tend to feel very small, and they tend to lack, I guess, a certain amount of intimacy that you need the theater for, of actually seeing the actors on stage, actually performing the thing right in front of you in real time. I just think, yeah, theater has its own strengths that doesn't really translate to film. Same thing with novels, when people adapt novels. If they're too faithful to the novel, it just feels like something's lacking, because novels are about language and film is about images. And when you don't have the language, something's missing. So that's why you kind of have to adapt, you have to interpret, you have to alter the thing for its medium. I think it's strange how it took Terrence Malick 20 years between Days of Heaven and The Thin Red Line. And after that, only 2 films in 13 years before he seemed to just start spraying them. Yeah, that is interesting. I think I agree with that theory, actually. Yeah, I absolutely do. I didn't know there was a name for it, but yeah, I've always thought that. I definitely agree with it. But Terrence Malick. Yeah, it is interesting. Apparently, I've been reading a little bit about him. He's one of those ones that is very, very private, doesn't do interviews, doesn't talk about himself. Rarely ever is even photographed. But he did do a Q&A recently for Song to Song, which I really want to see. I haven't watched it yet. It was shocking to see him do that. But I've read a few articles about him. Some people that have explored, what he was doing in that 20-year absence. Apparently, he was actively pursuing film productions. Like, he was going to do one called Q, I think it was. It was, I guess, going to be about the birth of the universe. And I guess he ended up using a lot of the ideas he had for Q in Tree of Life. So that one sort of ended up getting made. And there was some other stuff, that he spent years trying to get done in the 80s and then in the 90s, and just, he couldn't make them happen. And then, actually, I think it was a pair of producers came to him with the idea for The Thin Red Line. It was adapted from a book. Again, very loosely adapted, which I think, it speaks to the strengths that Malick really departed heavily from the source material on that one, and I think for the better. Made it into his own thing with the specific strengths of the film medium. It actually took somebody else coming to him with a project and saying, hey, you want to come on to this and direct it? And they just let him do his own thing with it. So it's funny how it works out sometimes. But he did manage to turn The Thin Red Line into a very personal work. I really disliked Your Name for some reason. Yeah, haven't seen it yet. I have to check it out, though. I've heard very positive things, though. But yeah, I guess no film is made for everybody. Oh, I find that filmmakers like Refn and Lynch are best when they are most confined to convention. I'm not sure if I agree with that. But I do think Lynch's strongest movies are the ones that are most grounded in character. Like Mulholland Drive, I think, is one of his best movies. And that's one that's very firmly grounded in the two characters, played by Naomi Watts and Laura Harring. And he's able to go off in all these weird directions and off in all these digressions. But at the heart of that movie, there is always those two characters. And it really gives that film a focus and, I guess, an emotional involvement that I feel is lacking from some of Lynch's other movies. Or he just gets a really great lead actor, like Jack Nance in Eraserhead. Not much of a character, honestly. He doesn't do a lot of talking. He doesn't really express a lot of personality. But there's just something about Nance's facial expressions, his haunting eyes, and the looks that he gives that really adds a lot emotionally to that film for me. And it also feels very autobiographical. It feels very confessional. So that adds something to it as well. So I don't know, but Lynch is, like I said, a lot of his movies I haven't seen in a long time, but Lynch has been one that has been kind of hit or miss for me as well. But I don't know, maybe there's just, like Del Toro said in that quote that I mentioned earlier, some films are like diamonds. They can take a lot of effort to mine, but their yield can be precious. So I don't know, maybe I need to go back, give Lynch another shot, give Riefen's work another shot. I'm not sure. But yeah, I try to remain curious, try to remain open. But yeah, at least my initial reactions to a lot of Riefen's stuff has been kind of mixed, and a lot of Lynch's stuff has been kind of mixed. But I'm getting more and more curious to go back to Lynch's stuff. I still can't get the image of Tom Hardy's almost supernaturally long foreskin in Bronson out of my head, sorry. That is one of the most memorable images in that movie. Have you guys seen, I just found out about it. I don't know how recently this came about, but apparently something that Willem Dafoe did a while back, like in the 80s, some like German TV thing that he did, where he was completely naked. Apparently that just, like, I guess surfaced recently or a little while ago, and it's just starting to get a lot of attention. But yeah, apparently you finally see his penis in that one, and it's, as Lars von Trier called it, confusingly large. Yeah, I'd heard that was a rumor, that Willem Dafoe apparently had the largest penis in Hollywood. Now we find it's finally out there. We could finally see it. And it is confusingly large. So yeah, check that out. Google that if you're curious. Willem Dafoe penis. Worth seeing, in my humble opinion. Nicholas Winding Refn is a really frustrating director. He's shown how capable of a filmmaker he is. Pusher Trilogy, Drive, Bronson. But he tries way too hard to shock his audience and forgets to tell a good story. And I love Refn, but I think I agree. He tries too hard to push boundaries, and it winds up compromising the quality at times. Yeah, I kind of felt that with Only God Forgives. A lot of the violence felt superfluous. He'll kind of like... There was one scene especially where a guy's getting tortured by, what was it, like needles? Something like that. He gets like, I think some needles shoved into his eye and then in his eardrum. And it's kind of like, at first you just see like, the way I remember it is like you see the needle like go out of frame and you hear the guy screaming. And it's kind of like, okay, we get it. You don't need to show us any more. We know what's happening. It's disturbing. Yeah, it's graphic enough. We get what is going on right now. But then he cuts to a close-up, showing the needle in the guy's eye, showing the needle in the guy's ear. And it's like, it really doesn't add anything other than just an attempt to viscerally shock or, confront people with violence. It doesn't really add anything to the story. It doesn't really add anything to the scene because we already know what's happening even without the graphic image. And it's disturbing enough. And so, it kind of takes you out of the film a little bit by kind of pointlessly crossing a line. That's the way I reacted, at least. So, I kind of felt that a lot. That, a lot of the violence was a bit superfluous and distracting from the story or the content of a scene. Oh, some alternate opinions, though. I honestly love Only God Forgives. But Valhalla Rising is by far my favorite Refn film. Yeah, that is a brutal brutal film, Valhalla Rising. It's about Vikings, and yeah, lots of gore, lots of blood, lots of pain and suffering in that movie, but felt like it was trying to service a tone. Felt like it was trying to show how brutal that era was, and how it's really just a kill or be killed situation. You've got to be the most vicious. You've got to be the most violent. So it felt like he didn't really get too superfluous in that one. It's very graphic and very disturbing, but it felt like it was in the service of a story and setting a tone. Do you know Sidney Lumet's The Fugitive Kind, starring Marlon Brando? There's a Criterion edition. I do know of it, but I haven't seen it. But I do love Sidney Lumet. I'm going to say again, because I still feel this is a really underrated, underseen movie, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, starring Ethan Hawke and the late Philip Seymour Hoffman and Marissa Tomei. Great movie. It was Sidney Lumet's last movie. It's a great movie. But yeah, he's done many, many masterpieces. If you do not know Sidney Lumet's work, he's got 5 or 6 essential ones that you have to see. 12 Angry Men, Network, Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, and there are probably a couple of others that I'm forgetting, but those 4, are some of the best American movies ever made. He was one of the greats. Just watched Twin Falls, Idaho. Heard of it? I have not heard of it. Twin Falls, Idaho. I'll look it up, though. Twin Falls, Idaho. Knight of Cups. What was that all about? Really excited after Tree of Life, and then... fart noise. I shall approach song to song with an open mind, though. Yeah, I guess that's the thing. I've kind of talked about that with Malik as well. Is that he really found an original, unique aesthetic and filmmaking style and storytelling style that he's been refining with The New World, and then on into Tree of Life, and then into To the Wonder. And Knight of Cups was the first one where I was like, it just felt like he was repeating himself. That's my reaction. A lot of people have mentioned to me how much they love that movie and what a profound effect it had on them. So, some people reacted completely the opposite way. But yeah, I sort of agree with Knight of Cups with you on that one, that it didn't really seem to add anything to that style, and it didn't really seem to have too much it was trying to say. But yeah, hopefully Song to Song is good. But I saw the trailer for it. It did just look like it was going to be another repetition. But again, I try not to judge films before I've seen them. So yeah, I'll have to see Song to Song for myself before I can really critique it. I will admit I did enjoy Only God Forgives as a guilty pleasure rather than an actual film. It's essentially an exploitation film. I guess that's true. Tarantino said that he makes the films that he wants to watch, and if an audience likes it, then that's a bonus. That's really the way you got to go about it. It's like they say, if you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. You've really got to be the first audience when you make something. You've got to just make something that you enjoy. Don't try to please anyone other than yourself. And then, if you can satisfy yourself as a creative person, as an artist, then that is really the goal. And if people like it, if you can make money off of it somehow, if you can achieve success, then that's the bonus, I really don't believe, in cynicism, in being obsessed with box office and numbers and all those things. Art should really be about satisfying your own drive and your own need for creativity and expression, first and foremost. I do think you should be somewhat aware of an audience. Just try to keep your ego in check to a certain extent. Because self-indulgence can be really, really dull. So, try to retain a bit of perspective, listen to your collaborators, and Just try to think, what kind of movie would I really like to see, and try to make that movie. Apparently, Eraserhead was Charles Bukowski's favorite film. You mentioned the autobiographical element. I read somewhere it was partly inspired by Lynch's fear of fatherhood. And Jennifer Lynch was born with a club foot, which fed into the film. Yeah, that's what I've heard too, is that it was based on his fears of fatherhood. And it's not hard to read into that, with the deformed child at the center of that movie. There's definitely some kind of Freudian thing going on there, of a fear of fatherhood. But there's also a lot of other stuff too that seems to have nothing to do with that theme. So that's the thing with Lynch, is you can never really definitively answer all the questions. I think that's what keeps people so obsessed with his work, is that there's always an ambiguity there. There's always something there that leaves you scratching your head and leaves you trying to delve deeper. But Eraserhead's a great movie. Yeah, I think for those elements that seem to be exploring his own psyche. Do you have any thoughts on Paul Schrader's Dog Eat Dog, or his work in general? I like Paul Schrader. I think he's another really underrated filmmaker. He's done a lot of terrific movies. Blue Collar, Light Sleeper with Willem Dafoe, another Willem Dafoe one. Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. I really liked Adam Resurrected with Jeff Goldblum and Willem Dafoe again. Gosh, what else? He's done a bunch that I've really liked. But yeah, his last couple films have really not been very good. Like The Canyons with Lindsay Lohan was really not so good. And Dying of the Light with Nicolas Cage was just flat out bad. That was just an awful movie, but apparently was taken out of his hands by the producers and really altered without his approval. And then Dog Eat Dog, was this really tiny micro-budget movie that he and Cage decided to do just because they lost control over Dying of the Light. It's like, we should just, let's get a movie, retain complete creative control over it, and just try to make the craziest thing we can, the most uncompromised thing we can. So Dog Eat Dog was sort of fun for that reason, that it was so uncompromising, that it just had this complete devil-may-care attitude about itself. But also the limitations of its budget and resources are very apparent, It's an interesting movie. Really, doesn't try to be politically correct or anything like that, which, obviously is going to turn a lot of people off to it, understandably. But yeah, I sort of enjoyed it. I thought the best part about it was Willem Dafoe. He gave a great performance as a really memorably slimy character. I thought he was the highlight of that movie. It doesn't seem like there's any character Willem Dafoe isn't willing to play. There's no character deranged enough, degenerate enough that he isn't willing to play. That's, I think, what makes him so interesting as an actor. Are you a fan of John Woo's Asian films? The Killer, A Better Tomorrow, Hard Boiled? I love The Killer, and I love Hard Boiled. That's one of the most epic, amazing action movies ever made. You could never make a movie like that again. Because it was made in Hong Kong, and it was made for a very low budget, and it was made before there were a lot of really heavy safety regulations and a solid infrastructure, built in Hong Kong and China at that time. Now, I don't think you could ever get away with it. There are so many safety hazards and so many dangerous things done on that movie. He almost killed Chow Yun-fat at several points when some pyrotechnics, malfunctioned. But that's what gives Hard Boiled, its incredible excitement and immediacy, is that you do feel constantly like the actors are in genuine danger, with all the blanks they're firing at each other and the squibs that are going off everywhere. You really feel like there's a genuine danger there. But it's great for that reason. And yeah, you could never do that film that way today without CGI, and with stuntmen and actors in essentially mortal peril the entire time. But it's great. It's one of the best action movies ever made. Henry, due to your recommendation, I shall Google Willem Dafoe's penis. I'm glad to hear it. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead is ace. Can't recommend it enough. Marissa Tomei is great in it, and Michael Shannon has a small but intimidating performance in the film. That's right. That's right. I forgot about that. Pollock was at the very top of his craft at that point. I think you mean Sidney Pollock. That wrong guy. It's another Sidney Lumet. Sidney Pollock is a different guy. He directed Out of Africa and Tootsie, which is also a great movie. But yeah, Sidney Lumet's a different director. That's okay though. With how bad I am with names, I can't give anyone shit. Yeah, for messing up names. I feel like I'm the only person ever who dislikes Eraserhead, but calls Inland Empire one of my favorite films of all time. You might be, but that's okay. Stand by your guns, you know? Yeah, I would disagree. I didn't really care for Inland Empire so much, but I love Eraserhead, but hey, that's okay. We've been going on almost 3 hours, so we'll probably end this stream fairly soon. Let's see. I'll try to answer these last few things. Redcliffe is John Woo's return to form. Redcliffe was good. I didn't like it as much as his early stuff, though. You know, I like the roughness and the grittiness of his early action movies. Redcliffe was very polished, and it was good, but didn't have the same kind of feel, to me. I think Refn could learn a thing or two from Paul Verhoeven. Verhoeven shocked his audience not just on a visceral level, but also in terms of theme, and he did it all with a sly sense of humor. That he did. RoboCop and Total Recall are still to this day really, really good action movies. And yeah, they don't take themselves that seriously, which I think is what helps them age so well. Is that, you know, effects have obviously improved since the days of Total Recall and RoboCop and certain other things. But yeah, it's their sense of humor. It's their subversiveness that still makes them entertaining and fun movies to this day. I actually really want to see Paul Verhoeven's Dutch films. I've only ever seen his American films. But yeah, I've wanted for years to try and see some of his Dutch stuff, like Turkish Delight, The Fourth Man, Soldier of Orange. I really want to see those. Haven't been able to yet. Which language in foreign films do you dislike to listen to the most? For me, it's Russian. No offense to any Russians in the stream. I don't know. I don't really dislike listening to any language. It's always interesting to me to listen to a foreign language, and I always try to see if I can pick up words. So yeah, I don't have any problems with foreign languages. I get that films should be viewed in one sitting, but I don't like that David Lynch does not include chapter selections on his Blu-rays. That's right. I forgot that he does that. But I find that sort of funny. I don't tend to use chapter skips too often, anyways. But but yeah, that is funny that there are no chapter selections on any David Lynch DVD or Blu-ray. He's a guy with very specific ideas about how you should watch his work. Which, hey, I don't think there's anything wrong with having conviction. Do you agree with the notion that the Disney Marvel is Hollywood cancer? Not necessarily. They aren't movies that I personally enjoy. They aren't movies that I really try to seek out. And they aren't movies that I really watch ever. But I don't know that I'd call them cancer. Certainly, it's way too much about franchises now. Remakes and reboots and sequels and everything. That has really killed creativity in Hollywood. But I think Steven Soderbergh talked about this in an interview. It's like movies are getting less creative. Hollywood studios are they really aren't cultivating talent at all anymore. It used to be that Hollywood studios, would have their big movies and the things that they would do every year, but they would also try to finance a lot of smaller stuff too, and they would try to cultivate unusual talent. Soderbergh was an example of that. You know, he developed relationships with studio people, with producers. He got to make a lot of really unusual films at the beginning of his career that were financed by studios, like Kafka and King of the Hill and The Underneath. But now that just doesn't happen, at least in Hollywood. And it's kind of sad. Like, Hollywood no longer is cultivating its talent. Hollywood is no longer encouraging creativity or artistic expression. And that's really sad for me. Playing it safe, huh? I'm not trying to alienate any of your subscribers. That I am. So I'm bummed by that fact that the artistry of, you know, the entertainment and the Hollywood studio film is dying. But as Soderbergh points out, Hollywood movies are making more money than they've ever made before. Like, they're making billions of dollars now, which has never previously happened. So what do I know, really? Maybe they're doing something right. They just keep making more and more money. So if you call it Hollywood cancer, I don't know that it's necessarily accurate, because it's successful. It's putting people in theater seats, right? So I don't know. It's not. I personally have lost interest in just about every major Hollywood film that comes out. I don't really have any interest in seeing more Star Wars movies. I don't really have any interest in seeing more comic book movies. But a lot of people do, and those movies make a ton of money. So maybe this franchise obsession is saving Hollywood rather than killing it. But I guess just to me personally, it seems kind of short-sighted. It's like they're putting all of their eggs in one basket. All it takes is for one of those movies to fail in a big way, and you're probably going to see Hollywood collapse. Completely collapse. So that's my kind of take on it. Like, the new Avengers movie is going to cost $1 billion. They're spending, it's a two-parter, and they're spending $500 million on each part. That's insane. You invest $1 billion in that movie, what if it doesn't make a profit? What if suddenly, for some reason, I don't think this is going to happen, but what if for some reason people decided they didn't want to see the new Avengers? Like, that studio is screwed. So I kind of feel like that's the direction we're heading in. They just keep inflating these things with more and more money, and once one of them fails, that's it. That's the end of Hollywood. Maybe it's apocalyptic, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's the direction I see this heading. But again, they're making money. People still have an interest. So, I don't know, maybe it'll continue indefinitely. I literally laughed out loud when you said that the actors and the killer were literally in mortal peril all the way through. I really enjoyed Verhoeven's Black Book, with a pre-Game of Thrones Karis Van Houten. Yeah, that was his return to Dutch filmmaking. I want to see that one. Still haven't seen it. Came out in like 2006, and I wanted to check it out. Still haven't. No. Oh, God, for some reason I thought it was 2013. 11 years later, still haven't seen it. God. Oh, talking about Your Name, I found it cliche, the anime film Your Name. I found it kind of cliche, and found the soundtrack and characters annoying. What's cliche to you? Oh yeah, talking about the comic book movies, what's even worse is that Jack Kirby's family gets nothing from those films. Yeah, Jack Kirby got kind of screwed over. He was one of those guys that contributed a lot, and unfortunately, yeah, got kind of pushed to the side. It's really sad. Yeah, and you'd think there's enough money to go around, but below-the-line people tend to get screwed, sadly. So I think, now that I've gone past the 3-hour mark, I think I'm probably going to bring this stream to a close. My throat's starting to kill me, too. I don't know how much longer my voice can last. I guess something that keeps being done in films Huh. But I don't really know what I consider cliche, to be honest. Yeah, I'm gonna check out Your Name, because I know nothing about it. I've just heard that it's really good. Yeah, so I want to check it out. And I love anime. I love animated films, so it's one I'm gonna see. How do you rate Richard Pryor as an actor? Even on stage, he was great. I don't think he ever did a movie that really compared with his stage work, with his stand-up work. But he did do some funny movies. He was in Paul Schrader's Blue Collar. That was Paul Schrader's first movie as a director, and he's great in that one. That was one of his few dramatic roles, but he's really good in that one. And yeah, I think you mentioned JoJo Dancer earlier. That was the movie he wrote, directed, and starred in. That's basically about his life. And there's some great stuff in that, too. The way he dealt with his attempted suicide, I thought was really powerful. Yeah, Pryor obviously had some very, very dark demons. He tried to end his life by soaking himself in alcohol and then lighting himself on fire. And that's such a horrible way to go. I mean, there has to be a pretty deep self-loathing for somebody to want to do that to themselves. So, I mean, Pryor, he had a lot of darkness. He had a lot of depth that he really explored on stage and in his stand-up work. He was so confessional. He was so vulnerable. And none of his movies really gave him the chance to do that, with a couple rare exceptions. But yeah, I'm always disappointed by that stand-up comedians don't tend, some do, like Robin Williams, for instance, but a lot of them don't really get the chance to express themselves as purely and as honestly as they get to do on stage. And Richard Pryor was one of those. Oh, you did? I didn't hate Your Name, though the animation was stunning, and I want to see more from the director. Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Henry. Really enjoyed this one. Lost Highway was Richard Pryor's last film. Blue Collar with the great Captain Beefheart soundtrack song. I didn't know Captain Beefheart did the soundtrack for that one. That's great. It's been so long since I've seen it. I only recently discovered Captain Beefheart, so yeah, I didn't know who he was at the time. Oh, God. Another attack. Yeah, I try not to get too into current events on these streams. God, that's fucking awful. I don't know how to make sense of that shit. So I lack the wisdom. I lack the words, but God, Jesus. Really sad. Sorry we have to end the stream on that note, but God. Yeah, so much violence now. I don't get what's happening. I do not understand it at all. I don't know why people can't just learn to live with one another. It doesn't make any sense to me. I can't make any sense of it. Richard Pryor. Yeah, that's right. Richard Pryor, yeah, his last film was Lost Highway. I think he was suffering from ALS. So he was pretty debilitated by that point. Confined to a wheelchair, sadly. But yeah, it was nice he got to do one last movie. And that gave him a chance to do something different. Oh, Which Way Up? I've never heard of that one. Which Way Up was great, and he played multiple roles way before Eddie Murphy. Let's end on a positive note, please. Yes, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to, not leave everyone upset and sad and afraid. So I'm trying to, get a bit more into Richard Pryor now. Oh, he had MS? I do too. I did not know that. Oh, God. I'm really sorry to hear that, man. I hope you're okay. Yeah, I don't know why so many comedians have... I agree. Please, something positive. I'm trying, yeah. I don't know why so many comedians, suffer from that disease. Who is it? Jonathan Katz. Yeah, he's one of my favorite comedians. He has MS as well. He did a great show called Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist. Anybody who hasn't seen Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist, that's one of the funniest shows ever made. It's this really cheaply animated show that was all done through improvisational comedy. And Jonathan Katz plays the lead role. John Benjamin, who is one of the best voice actors around,
He plays his son. It is such a funny show. I love Dr. Katz. And a lot of the people that worked on that show went on to create some great animated shows of their own as well. Like Home Movies is another great one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. And Bob's Burgers, which is another really funny show. Yeah, I love Katz. Yeah, it's really sad, yeah. He seems to be coping well though with his MS. Yeah, I hope you're all right too. I'm really sorry to hear about that. But yeah, there's my recommendation. If you want to just forget the insanity of the world for a little while, I believe all of Dr. Katz is on YouTube. It's also on DVD. I recommend you buy the DVD. You know, just I believe in supporting artists and the work that they create, but you know, no judgment. And yeah, Dr. Katz is readily available to watch on YouTube. Get into that show if you haven't seen it. It is such a funny show. Yeah, it's one of the few examples of improvisational comedy that I think really works. And I think the fact that it works is because it's animated, so they can just do voiceovers, they can just throw anything out there, and it's really easy to edit the audio. I think doing improvisational comedy in film is a lot trickier. But in animation, it works really well. Like Dr. Katz, Home Movies, Bob's Burgers, a lot of improv there, and it works really, really well because you can just animate around it and blend whatever you want together. Yeah, so animated shows are the best place for improvisational comedy. Dr. Katz, I think, being the finest example. And they had, yeah, all kinds of great comedians as guest stars, too. Like Louis C.K. was on there. This was in, like, the mid-90s, before anybody had become really big. They had Patton Oswalt, they had Mark Maron, and other really established people, like, I think they had Louis Black. They had, oh gosh, I just thought of one. Damn it. Rodney Dangerfield was on there. Bunch of others too. There were like 2 or 3 guest stars in each episode. Like, that whole show is just a comedy encyclopedia. It introduced me to so many great comedians. It's yeah, if you love comedy, Dr. Katz, you got to check it out. Trailer Park Boys is the funniest program I've seen. I haven't watched Trailer Park Boys, at least not yet. Ooh. Your sister's safe at home in bed? Oh, thank God. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. But yeah, horrible, horrible tragedy. I genuinely hope people are okay. God. But yeah, not really anything I can do. I'm just some dumbass on YouTube, so everyone here is so fucking nice and has great taste. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hope everyone's okay, and yeah, just want to try and forget about the craziness of the world for a little while. Maybe check out Dr. Katz. It's one of my favorite shows. But yeah, I think I'm going to end it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone can get through the week all right. Stay positive, stay enthusiastic, be kind to one another, be kind to yourselves, and yeah, watch some good movies. So yeah, I don't know what I'll be talking about next week. Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is happening tomorrow. Another episode is dropping. I'll be watching that and probably talking about that with my brother again next stream. So thank you all for joining me, and I'm gonna watch Willow Creek now. Great, glad to hear it. Cheers, man. Yeah. Have a good week, yeah, everyone. Be safe. Yeah, so thank you so much. And I don't think I need to say this, but yeah, subscribe if you haven't already, like the video, leave a comment, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I'll see you next Saturday. So thank you so much. Yeah, beside the unfortunate, yeah, can't control how it ended. I'm sorry. I really don't want to, leave everyone on a downer note, but yeah, God, what can you say in the face of something like that? I really don't know. But yeah, have a good one, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.